Chapter 1105. At this moment, Zhang Lishuan looked at Wang Feng hesitantly. Do you have a way? The flaw of this soul ring wasn't serious to her now. However, it was a hidden danger. Wang Feng said, Of course. However, you might not be able to understand it now. Let's talk about it after I enter the Sea God's pavilion. Zhang Lishuan was speechless. Is he doing this on purpose? Zhang Lishuan thought. Zhang Lishuan snorted and turned around to leave the stage. After that, she turned back to look at Wang Feng. Your cultivation method is completely different from Soul Master's. However, I have to admit that it's a very powerful and unique cultivation system. I'll report this to the elders in the Sea God's pavilion. Her beautiful eyes flashed as she sized up Wang Feng. After that, she quickly left the stage. To her, the outcome of today's battle wasn't important. The most important thing was that she had seen a completely new world that she had never seen before. It wasn't just for everyone present. They saw a world that was even bigger, more majestic, more mysterious, and filled with possibilities than Soul Masters. Soul Contractor. These 3 words were imprinted in everyone's minds. Many young students were curious and looked forward to it. However, everyone's attention was focused on Wang Feng. Even the teachers from the outer courtyard were doing the same. Soul Contractor, is this a soul contractor? Zhou Yi sighed. There hasn't been a new cultivation system in the Douluo continent's tens of thousands of years of history. Although the world of Soul Masters is constantly changing, it hasn't left the same circle. No one had ever thought of working together with humans and soul beasts. No one had the ability or the courage to do so. However, this mysterious man in front of her had truly stepped into a realm that no human had ever stepped into in the Shrek Academy. Long Xie, come back. Wang Feng's soul ring flashed, and Long Xie's huge body entered the soul ring's spirit domain. This kind of mysterious method was simply amazing. Cultivate well. Try to reach 10,000 years in half a year. Wang Feng transmitted his voice. No problem. Boss, why don't you give me another drop of essence blood? Scram. You can't take 2 drops of essence blood with your small body. At this moment, Zhou Yi walked forward and asked in a deep voice, May I ask if you're really the one who created this cultivation system? Of course. Wang Feng nodded. Hearing the exact answer, the teachers fell silent. They could tell that the other party was able to fight to a draw with Zhang Lishuan, the top student of the inner courtyard. Zhang Lishuan had lost. However, Zhang Lishuan didn't use her full strength. Therefore, the other party also felt that the victory was not honorable. They both stopped after a certain point, so they said it was a draw. Looks like I just need to wait for the results? Wang Feng glanced at the 3 teachers. After today's battle, he should be able to enter the Sea God's pavilion and play a round of cards. However, Wang Feng faintly felt that it was not that simple. Every time the system punched out a location, there would be a huge difficulty. If it was just a fight, it would be a piece of cake for Wang Feng. I believe that the Sea God's pavilion will give you an answer very soon. Zhou Yi replied. Since that's the case, I won't disturb you any further. Wang Feng chuckled, withdrew his martial spirit, and walked straight down. He walked over to Huiyuhao's side. Teacher, you're too amazing. Huiyuhao looked at Wang Feng with admiration. Soul Contractor. Is this the strength of a soul contractor? Huiyuhao was very excited. He was even more excited than when he saw Wang Feng defeat the 10,000-year soul beast. That was the top student of the inner courtyard. He was so far away from him, who had just entered the academy. Teacher's knowledge is so rich. It's a pity. If only teacher could enter the Shrek Academy and teach me. Huiyuhao thought to himself. Work hard. Wang Feng smiled as he looked at Huiyuhao. He encouraged him. Sooner or later, Tangya and Bei Bei looked on enviously from the side. He's a good teacher. Wang Dong looked at Wang Feng, and a thought suddenly appeared in his mind. I will work hard. Huoyu Hao clenched his fists and continued Wang Feng's words. Sooner or later, I'll reach teacher's level. No, no, no. Wang Feng shook his hand. I'm asking you to work hard because I want you to know that if you don't work hard, you won't know how big the gap is between you and teacher. You'll never reach teacher's level. Huoyu Hao was speechless. Wang Donger was speechless. Tangya and Bei Bei were also petrified. They thought that Wang Feng was encouraging Huoyu Hao, but they didn't expect him to be so unpredictable. Wang Donger laughed. On the other side, Xiao Xiao also covered her mouth and laughed. She looked at the awkward Huoyu Hao. Becoming his student should be a painful and joyous thing, right? Xiao Xiao thought to herself. However, even if that's the case, it'll be great if he's really my teacher. Don't worry, even if you can't reach teacher's level. Wang Feng patted Huoyu Hao's shoulder. You'll have a bright future. No one on the continent will be your match. Huoyu Hao chuckled. Although he didn't believe it, he was still very pleased with his teacher's encouragement. Oh yes, Elder Wang, did you and Zhang Lishuan talk about anything else on the stage? Bei Bei asked at this point. We didn't really understand the fight just now. Wang Feng laughed. He couldn't talk about the flaws in Zhang Lishuan's soul skills so casually. He said that he wanted to help Zhang Lishuan because he wanted to enter the Sea God's pavilion. Otherwise, he wouldn't have meddled in other people's business. I'll review it when I'm free. It'll be an experience for all of you. Wang Feng said casually. Thank you, Elder Brother Wang. Bei Bei nodded. Hee, Elder Brother Wang, we met so many students today. At this point, Tangya suddenly asked curiously, I wonder which one of them left a deep impression on you? And so many beautiful girls? A girl's focus was indeed different from his. It was completely different from what Bei Bei had said. Wang Feng laughed and said, Your big brother Wang already has a wife. So many beautiful girls are nothing to me. Everyone was stunned when they heard this. You have a wife? Tangya was astonished. This was too shocking. Xiao Xiao, who was in the distance, was startled. How could such a handsome big brother have a wife? It must be fake, right? Who's worthy of him? Of course. Wang Feng nodded. However, they're not here for the time being. Not here. Tangya and Bei Bei looked at each other. Did they pass away? Wait, something doesn't seem right? They're not in this world. They're in another world. Wang Feng said. Everyone's faces darkened when they heard this. Tangya and Bei Bei finally understood what was wrong. Them? Another world? Elder Wang, please don't joke with us. Bei Bei laughed awkwardly. Wang Feng didn't explain further. He felt that he couldn't be a jerk anymore. He had to say this so that these girls who were lusting after his body would give up on that thought. At this point, Wang Dong suddenly opened his mouth. Wang Feng. Elder Wang, I'm very interested in becoming a soul contractor. I wonder if I can be your disciple? P.S. Today's update is 6 p.m. Vote more. End of chapter. Chapter 1106. Become his disciple? Wang Feng glanced at Wang Dong. He stared at Wang Feng with an extremely sincere gaze, and a trace of reverence could be seen in his eyes. Evidently, the guy who had pretended to be her Uncle Feng had changed from a swindler to a true expert in her heart. New things were naturally extremely attractive. What's more, he was a soul charger. After this battle, not to mention the entire Shrek Academy, but basically all the students in the outer courtyard would know the weight and meaning of these 3 words. Why do you want to become my disciple? Wang Feng asked. I'm very curious about soul chargers, and I want to learn about them. Wang Dong's train of thought was clear. Then there's no need to. Wang Feng waved his hand. Even if I enter the Sea God's pavilion, I'll still spread the word about soul chargers. Anyone can learn and explore soul chargers, and anyone can become one. You don't need to become my disciple because of this. Speaking of which, every soul charger would be his disciple in the future. In reality, becoming his disciple didn't mean much. Wang Feng only wanted to see the effects of a life soul contract if he wanted to take Huo Yuhao as his disciple. Other than that, he also needed to solve a few problems related to life soul contract. For example, could soul contracts be broken? What would happen if a soul master hurt his soul beast? How could a soul master form a life soul contract with a soul beast? How would a soul master form a friendship with a soul beast? How would a soul master train a soul beast? Of course, these problems couldn't be solved overnight. Constructing a complete cultivation system wasn't something that could be done in a short period of time. However, Wang Feng wanted to present a rough framework to the world. Furthermore, he wanted this framework to be firm and able to withstand the impact of time. It also had to be able to withstand the addition of new things to this framework. After comprehending part of the law of life, Wang Feng looked at many things from the perspective of the world. A cultivation system would always have many branches. As long as the main framework didn't change, the system would continue to exist. Wang Dong was stunned when he heard this. It's not that easy to become a soul charger. Just do what you need to do. Wang Feng glanced at Wang Dong. Wang Dong fell silent after failing to become Huo Yuhao's disciple. Huo Yuhao thought to himself, it's extraordinarily difficult to become teacher's disciple. How could it be that easy? Come to think of it, at that time, he was only at level 10, so he could test his teacher's life soul contract. That was why he was accepted as a disciple. As he thought about this, he couldn't help but rejoice. Elder Wang, we're also interested in becoming a soul contract master. If you're free, why don't you tell us more about it? Tang Ye asked with a grin. Bei Bei hurriedly nodded as well. Logically speaking, battles with soul beasts were indeed very interesting. If he could imagine having a powerful soul beast by his side, how awe-inspiring would that be? Even if they were not strong, as long as they were good-looking and cool, they would still be very handsome, right? Wang Feng looked at the anticipation in their eyes, as well as the excited and curious gazes of the surrounding students. Suddenly, he realized something. For these children, their worldview had not yet been fully formed. After witnessing the battle with Long Xie, Huo Yuhao's concept of soul beasts had changed quite a bit. To them, the shocking performance of a soul renderer was what attracted them the most. If I have time, I will. Wang Feng revealed a slight smile. After that, Wang Feng left the Shrek Academy and waited for news from the Sea God's Pavilion. The commotion caused by this battle quickly spread from the outer courtyard to the inner courtyard. Soul contract masters. Some people were disdainful, some were curious, some were watching, and some ignored for the soul master system that had existed for tens of thousands of years. The concept of soul masters hunting soul beasts to obtain soul rings was deeply ingrained. It wasn't something that could be changed with a single battle. For example, the Sun Moon Empire's soul engineers had evolved from soul masters. After thousands of years of development, they were slowly introduced into the Federation. The Shrek Academy's Soul Tool Department had been established not long ago. Even the Sun Moon Empire, which had developed soul tool technology for thousands of years, didn't have a soul engineer system. It couldn't change the status of soul masters in the Federation. Wang Feng wasn't anxious. He had been cultivating peacefully over the past few days. The Shrek Academy also showed its magnanimity as the #1 academy on the continent. They specially arranged a residence for Wang Feng in the inner courtyard. He was also officially on the right path of cultivation. Wang Feng's residence was located in the southeastern part of the outer courtyard's teaching block. It was in a bamboo forest. This was where many of the outer courtyard's teachers lived. The wealthy Shrek Academy allocated a small house for every teacher. It was about 100 square meters in size. Even 2 people were enough, let alone 1. The Shrek Academy's teachers had a lot of benefits. Although their food, clothing, housing, and transportation weren't extremely luxurious, they were still better than ordinary soul masters. This was especially so when it came to food. Food was often directly related to a soul master's physique. Naturally, Huoyu Hao wouldn't fall behind. He was also officially on the right path of cultivation. He only needed to pass the freshman assessment 2 months later. Then, he would officially be a first-year student. His talent had increased slightly after he signed a life contract with the Silver Silkworm. However, he was still at the bottom of the pack. Fortunately, he was still very hard-working. One day, Wang Feng cultivated in Long Xie's courtyard. Long Xie had suffered a lot in that battle. However, it recovered very quickly in the soul domain. It was fully healed the next day. After that, it began to cultivate rapidly. It had to be said that fighting was very beneficial to a contracted soul beast, or rather, to Long Xie. After obtaining the soul contract, Long Xie's cultivation speed increased even more when it was by Wang Feng's side. It was like sitting on a rocket. However, Long Xie's cultivation speed was so fast because of Wang Feng's essence blood. His essence blood wasn't like the essence blood of other soul masters. Now that it had undergone 5 energy tides, the origin energy of heaven and earth was very dense. Long Xie's cultivation speed was very fast. Wang Feng didn't have to worry about his foundation being unstable if he cultivated too quickly. The solution to this problem was to fight more. During the process of fighting, his soul power would gradually stabilize. This was because soul beasts needed to form their soul cores. Cultivating too quickly wasn't a good thing. If it didn't work, Wang Feng would personally beat Long Xie up. Soon, Wang Feng faced his first problem. It was related to the cultivation of a soul beast. There wasn't enough food. As soul beasts grew, their need for food would also increase as their size increased. Even though Long Xie's body was filled with muscles thanks to Wang Feng's training, his consumption of food had increased. Furthermore, it didn't need simple food. I think being a soul contractor will be a money-burning profession in the future, Wang Fengxin said. End of chapter. Chapter 1107. What a soul beast ate had a lot to do with its growth. Yu Hao's silver-patterned silkworm was fine. It only needed to eat some leaves. Long Xie was a stone crane beast. He had mutated, and his soul had lived for many years. He was very picky. Normally, a stone crane dragon would eat all kinds of rocks before digesting the energy in them. They weren't very difficult to cultivate either. However, Long Xie had a unique taste. How could a dragon like him eat rocks? Did he not care about his reputation? In the beginning, Long Xie ate casually. He ate whatever he wanted. As his cultivation gradually increased, food played a crucial role in the changes to his body and cultivation. You can't eat so casually in the future. Wang Feng looked at Long Xie and said, "You're a stone crane dragon. Eat more special ores that contain the origin energy of heaven and earth. They'll be helpful for your cultivation." Long Xie was speechless. "Boss, you can't do this to me, right?" Long Xie swallowed the thigh in his arms. "I can't eat enough ores. They're useless to me and they're disgusting." "You haven't eaten them yet. How do you know they're disgusting?" Wang Feng said, "There are many special ores. Once you eat them, you might awaken some abilities in advance. It might even awaken your dragon god bloodline." "Do I need to eat them? Are ores for humans to eat? They taste like shit." Long Xie shook his head. "You're not human. You're a beast. You're a stone crane beast. You like to eat rocks the most. Stop talking nonsense. Here, I have a few rocks that I brought from the Rainbow Mountain." Wang Feng took out a rock from his soul tool. "How do you know they taste like shit? Have you eaten them before?" The power of laws in the rock had disappeared. However, it was still a rock that had been given powerful laws by a godly king. It naturally contained a lot of energy. Long Xie's head shook like a drum. "This is to nurture you," Wang Feng continued. "If you want to surpass your previous self as a million-year soul beast and become a powerful beast god, it's best for you to follow the cultivation plan that I've devised for you. Use scientific concepts to become stronger. What science? Long Xie asked. Your boss's words are science. Long Xie shut his mouth. Wang Feng took a big step forward and stomped on Long Xie's fat feet. In an instant, Long Xie's body trembled. Long Xie squealed like a pig being slaughtered. Wang Feng stuffed all the stones in his hand into Long Xie's mouth. Gulp, gulp. How does it taste? Wang Feng let go of Long Xie's leg and asked. Bah. Boss, the taste is really not bad. Long Xie didn't like it at first, but after chewing a bit, he realized that it tasted pretty good. It didn't taste like shit like what he had eaten before. Nonsense, you are now in the body of a rock dragon, and your body has already adapted to the smell of stone. Your taste buds are completely different from your previous blood dragon form, Wang Feng said. Why do you think dogs like to eat shit but humans don't? This was because a dog's body structure was completely different from a human's. In our mouth it stinks, but in the mouth of a dog it's fragrant. Boss, why do I feel like you're scolding me? Long Xie pouted as he chewed. But the stones from the Rainbow Mountain are really fragrant. The energy in this stone is very compatible with the soul power in my body. I can also vaguely feel another type of energy. When Wang Feng left the five-colored mountain, he took many things from around the mountain. Along with the energy tide, many natural treasures grew within the range of the five-colored mountain. However, most of them were occupied by soul beasts. However, the Rainbow Mountain wasn't occupied by any soul beast. Wang Feng's soul tool contained many rocks from the pentacolored mountain. These were rocks that had burst out from the center of the pentacolored mountain when it cracked open. Under normal circumstances, these mountains contained godly king's laws, and they were one entity. It was impossible to move even one of them. Long Xie could absorb these stones now that he had 1,000 years of cultivation. Adding on the fact that their attributes were compatible, the evil dragon would probably grow stronger if it was fed for a long time. At this moment, a curious voice sounded. Is this how you nurture your soul-bonded beast? Zhang Lishuan had appeared outside the courtyard at some point. Wang Feng turned around and looked at her. He wasn't surprised and nodded slightly. Food can strengthen soul-bonded beasts. It's like how soul masters need to eat high-quality food to replenish their energy and become stronger. Different soul-bonded beasts are nurtured differently. Are you here to bring news from the Sea God's Pavilion? It had been 2 days, and the Sea God's Pavilion should have had some news by now. Zhang Lishuan shook her head slightly and said, Elder Xian and Elder Mu from the Sea God's Pavilion are still carrying out a special operation in the Central Martial Soul Palace. They won't be back for a few months. However, the other elders in the pavilion think highly of you. They've all agreed to let you join the Sea God's Pavilion, although I don't know what your motive is. Wang Feng acknowledged her words. Following this, Zhang Lishuan suddenly said, I'm here on behalf of the elders in the Sea God's Pavilion to invite you to be a teacher at the Shrek Academy. Wang Feng smiled. He was no exception to this. I'm not interested. Wang Feng shook his head. It was too troublesome to teach someone. What if you can enter the Sea God's Pavilion temporarily? Zhang Lishuan continued. If you want to enter the Sea God's Pavilion, you can only do so as a teacher from the inner courtyard. Otherwise, the elders won't allow an outsider to enter the Sea God's Pavilion. Wang Feng laughed and said, Isn't the requirement to become a teacher at the Shrek Academy very high? Why would they hire a rank 18 soul master as a teacher? Zhang Lishuan furrowed her brows and said, Please don't treat the people from the Shrek Academy as fools, especially the Sea God's Pavilion. A rank 18 soul master can't possibly fight me to a draw. It's also impossible for him to create a new cultivation system. Although I don't know who you are, where you came from, or what your motive is, I'm still a soul master from the inner courtyard. However, many teachers from the inner courtyard find it a little novel. It's a brand new cultivation method. They also want to understand soul masters. That's why they hired you as a teacher. Zhang Lishuan's words were clear and very serious. In 3 months, there will be a batch of new students taking the entrance test. Zhang Lishuan continued, if you want to bring the world of soul renters to greater heights, becoming a teacher is a good choice. After hearing this, Wang Feng felt that the Shrek Academy hadn't changed much. Alright. Wang Feng thought for a while. I don't need too many students. A few will do. I'll set a precedent for you. Chapter 1108. Zhang Lishuan nodded. She was only here to convey the elder's suggestion. It didn't matter if they didn't agree. They could wait for Elder Xian and Elder Mu to return. Is there anything else? Wang Feng looked at Zhang Lishuan, who was still standing where she was. Zhang Lishuan glanced at him before she turned around and left. Boss, this girl probably wants to ask you how to solve the soul ring's flaw. Long Xie's heart was like a mirror. He could see everything clearly. Nonsense. Do you think I don't know? Wang Feng snapped. I haven't entered the Sea God's pavilion yet. Why should I help her? The person in charge of the Sea God's pavilion hasn't returned yet. I can't barge into the Sea God's pavilion. Frankly speaking, he was just going to the Sea God's pavilion to check in. There was no need for him to make such a big fuss. Furthermore, the Shrek Academy had a deep relationship with him. Oh, I thought you didn't know. Long Xie muttered. Wang Feng glared at Long Xie. Over the next 2 months, Wang Feng and Long Xie began to cultivate in seclusion. After eating the rocks from the Rainbow Mountain, Long Xie's body started to glow faintly. It looked pretty good. His cultivation speed and body speed started to decrease. The small bump on his back also started to grow. He would probably undergo his first mutation when he reached the 10,000-year level. Wang Feng estimated that Long Xie would become a 10,000-year soul beast in 5 months at this rate. This was unimaginable for soul beasts. As the first soul contract master, Wang Feng was a miracle. He would visit Long Xie every day and report on the silver-patterned silkworm's situation. Sometimes, he would even bring grilled fish to Long Xie. Otherwise, Long Xie would get sick of eating rocks every day. In the 2nd month, his silver-patterned silkworm started to change. Thin and short silver patterns started to appear on its body. According to the Skydream iceworm, this was a sign that it was about to evolve or mutate. However, silkworms were naturally weaker, so it was easier for them to evolve or mutate. Coupled with the influence of their life contract, they would naturally evolve earlier. However, the silver-patterned silkworm was so weak that it would probably evolve many times. For example, the Skydream iceworm would shed its skin every time it evolved, and become slightly stronger. Speaking of which, Huoyu Hao was indeed hard-working. Other than exercising every day, all he did was exercise. He didn't even give him time to rest. Along the way, Wang Donger had followed Huoyu Hao a few times. Their relationship wasn't bad. On one hand, he wanted to see Long Xie, and on the other, he wanted to know more about Wang Feng. Other than that, Jiang Nan had also come twice, but it was only to thank Wang Feng for helping her in that battle. Other than helping Long Xie with his training, Wang Feng also released the egg from his soul tool from time to time. The Lin Lord of Ice Empress should be breaking out of its shell soon. If nothing unexpected happened, it would become Wang Feng's second soul-bonded beast. Wang Feng was looking forward to it. This egg had been nurtured by the Skydream iceworm for countless years, and was filled with a dense amount of innate energy. Thus, it was the most suitable vessel for a soul. Moreover, the consciousness of the evil devourer had been devoured by Lin Lord Bingmu. In these 2 months, Wang Feng's soul force had reached rank 20. Since Lin Lord Bingmu hadn't been born yet, Wang Feng didn't break through. After all, his soul power rank wasn't very important to him. After reaching rank 20, his first purplish origin pattern had finally awakened. However, the second pattern could only be awakened at rank 40. Therefore, Wang Feng couldn't reach rank 40 in the near future. The first purplish origin pattern awakened the power of judgment. To be precise, it was the power of judgment. It was the power of judgment, one of the 7 origin powers of the origin tribulation God King. In the courtyard, Wang Feng caressed the purplish origin pattern on his body. After awakening, this purplish origin pattern flowed with a light that resembled amethyst mercury. One could subtly feel a special and powerful energy undulation from it. The power of judgment represented the rules. It judged the heavens and the earth, and judged all life. Although it had just awakened, it was still extraordinary. Wang Feng stared at the blue sky. As the purplish origin pattern on his body lit up, Wang Feng suddenly grabbed towards the sky. In an instant, dark clouds churned in the sky, and countless dark purple lightning bolts boomed. Purple lightning flashed in the sky, and the heavens might seem to announce the end of the world. "Damn, boss, what are you doing?" Long Xie ran out of the soul beast space and looked at the sky in shock. "Why do I feel the aura of the heavenly tribulation? Don't tell me there's a soul beast undergoing the heavenly tribulation in the academy? I haven't even reached 100,000 years yet." Wang Feng's eyes flashed. At this moment, a crack as deep as an abyss appeared in the sky above Shrek City. The energy that shook the 9 heavens raged in the sky. In an instant, countless experts looked up at the sky with their hearts stirred. Several figures flew from the Academy's Sea Gods Pavilion to a height of 100 meters above the ground. They watched in astonishment. The enormous heavenly tribulation lightning seemed like it could fall at any time. The elders of the Sea Gods Pavilion were completely confused. What's going on? Is there a soul beast undergoing the heavenly tribulation? But how can there be 100,000-year soul beast in the Academy? That's the real heavenly tribulation lightning, not ordinary lightning. It's a terrifying heavenly tribulation lightning that could turn countless soul beasts into ashes. It controlled the rules of the world. Wang Feng's eyes flashed. Sure enough, the heavenly tribulation lightning could be controlled by the power of the heavenly tribulation lightning. It symbolized the rules of the world. As expected of the power of the origin tribulation divine king, Wang Feng's long cultivation of the light and darkness martial soul was not in vain. However, the heavenly tribulation lightning consumed a lot of energy. Before it had completely descended, Wang Feng's soul power had already been reduced by half. Moreover, this purple origin that symbolized the power of the heavenly tribulation lightning could not only summon the heavenly tribulation lightning, it could also greatly enhance one's soul skills. If this purple origin was completely activated, Wang Feng estimated that he would enter a special state. His entire body would be greatly strengthened. "It's a little strong." Wang Feng took a deep breath. He didn't expect this avatar to be so strong even though it started from scratch. But thinking about it, this was the power of the origin of a divine king. And it was once the strongest origin tribulation divine king in the divine world. The angel of light and darkness martial soul was only the carrier of the origin tribulation divine king's power. The awakening of the first set of purple origin greatly enhanced the strength of Wang Feng's avatar. Wang Feng suddenly thought of what would happen if his avatar and main body merged into one. How strong would he be then? It wasn't impossible. He only needed to obtain the middle part or the lower part of the one qi into 3 pure ones. He waved his hand and hid the purple origin. The dark clouds and lightning in the sky immediately disappeared. The sky calmed down again as if nothing had existed. Chapter 1109. It's getting stronger and stronger, Wang Feng muttered. This avatar was ridiculously strong, even though it had the foundation of the main body. It might even surpass the main body in the future. Wang Fengxin calmed down as he retracted his purple origin. "Boss, this," Long Shi scratched his head and looked at Wang Feng. He didn't know what to say. Could it be that the heaven-grade lightning punishment was caused by Boss? But was that possible? Was that a true heavenly tribulation lightning punishment? Depending on the cultivation of soul beasts, the strength of their heavenly tribulations would be different. The heavenly tribulation that Lin Lord Bing Mu faced was extremely strong, because he was only one step away from becoming a god. The heaven-grade lightning punishment earlier wasn't as strong as Lin Lord Bing Mu's heavenly tribulation. However, it was enough to threaten 100,000-year soul beast. Those who were weaker wouldn't be able to withstand it. This was only the power of judgment that had just been awakened. As Wang Feng's soul power increased, the purple origin patterns would become stronger. I'm not too sure now. Let's talk about it when the time comes, Wang Feng said casually. It wasn't easy to figure out the origin power of the origin tribulation God King in a short period of time. The sudden appearance of the mysterious lightning was like a flash in the pan. It disappeared after a short while. No one knew what happened. A few days later, Huiyu Hao and Wang Donger went to find Wang Feng again. Xiao Xiao was with them. Teacher, we'll be taking the entrance exam the day after tomorrow. Huiyu Hao was a little excited. After 3 months of cultivation, his originally skinny body had become a little more robust. There was even a soft silver-patterned silkworm on his shoulder. After that battle, the concept of soul contract masters and soul contract beasts appeared in the Shrek Academy. Huiyu Hao didn't keep this silver-patterned silkworm anymore. He wouldn't hide it in front of Wang Dong. Under Wang Feng's guidance, this adorable baby silkworm had been nurtured to a fair and tender state. Its cultivation had also increased by a few hundred years. It should be able to reach the 1,000-year level soon. Although it was much slower than Long Xie. Long Xie's cultivation was close to 8,000 years now. Wang Dong was a little envious as he looked at this cute silkworm. He also wanted to raise such a cute soul beast. Even if it didn't have any fighting strength, it didn't matter. It was so cute and he could even keep it by his side. Xiao Xiao, who was at the side, poked the silver-patterned silkworm with her finger. It felt very soft and comfortable. It had to be said that such soul beasts were extremely lethal to girls. Big brother, when can you make us soul renters too? Xiao Xiao clasped her hands behind her back and looked at Wang Feng with a smile. Ever since she found out that Wang Feng had left the Shrek Academy, she often came to see Wang Feng, wanting to know more about the soul renters. This was especially so after seeing Huiyu Hao's soul-carving beast. After you pass the entrance exam. Wang Feng thought for a while and said, when the time comes, I will be a teacher in the academy for a period of time. I will choose some students and try to make them soul contractors. I will also impart to you the knowledge of the soul-bonding beast and the method to cultivate it. There are already some rules for soul renters. As the first batch of soul renters. Hearing this, the 3 of them were stunned. Pleasant surprise appeared on the faces of the 3. Wang Fengxin said. He wanted to choose a few people for the experiment. From Huiyu Hao, who was not even rank 20, to rank 70 soul sages, he would choose some people from this range. He wanted to see the actual situation. Different soul power ranks had different soul rings. What if he could guarantee that they would sign a life contract with a soul beast? At the same time, what kind of changes would there be after signing a soul contract with a soul master of different ranks? In fact, the ideal situation for soul renters was Huiyu Hao's situation. From the first soul ring, it was a soul-carving beast that was slowly nurtured. However, since he was going to spread it now, he couldn't avoid letting these soul masters who already had many soul rings sign a life contract. Wang Feng looked at the 3 of them. Huiyu Hao seemed to be rank 16. This was also thanks to Su Sanshur. Over the past 2 months, Su Sanshur had also come to find Wang Feng, wanting to apologize for what happened in the soul dueling arena. Thus, he gave him a mysterious water pill that was worth 1,000 gold. The mysterious water pill was worth 1,000 gold because it could increase a soul master's aptitude. Simply put, it increased a soul master's innate soul power rank. Wang Feng didn't have any use for it, so he gave it to Huiyu Hao. After eating this pill, Huoyuhao's aptitude had been increased by the silver-patterned silkworm's life energy. After eating this pill, he'd reached rank 16 in less than 3 months. His speed had soared. In addition to the soul skills that Huoyuhao and the silver-patterned silkworm possessed, as well as the Tang Sect's consummate skills, his current strength was many times stronger than before. "Can I become your student as long as I become the champion?" Wang Dong asked directly. Wang Feng shook his head. To be precise, he was the one who chose them. It didn't matter if they became the champion or not. Seeing this, Wang Dong curled his lips. Huoyuhao whispered, "Teacher has very high standards. As long as we become the champion, you'll definitely become his student. The same goes for Xiao Xiao. However, when the time comes, you'll enter the sect later than me, so I'll be your eldest senior brother." Wang Dong glared at him. The two of them lived in the same dorm. During the past 2 months, they'd trained together and were inseparable. Not to mention humans, even animals had feelings. The two of them naturally became familiar with each other, and their relationship became deeper and deeper. "Big brother, you said you were going to call me a blowjob." Xiao Xiao pouted. "You can't go back on your word. When the time comes, you must choose me as your student. I also want to raise a cute soul beast." Wang Feng coughed a few times. The reason why these two fellows wanted to become soul contract masters was because they wanted to raise a cute soul contract beast. They were really buying the casket and returning the pearl. They didn't understand at all how powerful soul charmers were. These little girls' focus was completely different. Wang Fengxin thought to himself. "Go and prepare." Wang Feng chased the 3 of them away. "I'll go and take a look at the freshman assessment when I'm free." The 3 of them nodded. They stayed for a while and talked about the interesting things that had happened in the academy recently, then left. The next day, another person came to find Wang Feng. It was Zhou Yi, who'd fought with Wang Feng in the soul dueling area. "Sir, that Huoyuhao should be your disciple, right?" Zhou Yi smiled as she spoke. "You can say that." Wang Feng nodded. "Did you come to find me because of my disciple? Did he get into trouble?" "No, he didn't. It's just that I want to introduce him to my lover." Zhou Yi hurriedly said, "My lover is a teacher in the soul tool department. Because your disciple possesses a rare spiritual type martial soul, he's actually very suitable for the soul tool department. I came to ask for your permission. At the same time, I also have a request." Chapter 11:10. Wang Feng glanced at him in astonishment. He'd been in Shrek for over 2 months. It wasn't as if he didn't know what was going on outside. The academy was divided into 2 factions: the Martial Soul Department and the Soul Tool Department. The Soul Tool Department was formed because of the Sun-Moon Empire's increasingly powerful soul tool technology. Thus, the Shrek Academy had no choice but to establish this department several hundred years ago to research soul tool technology. However, it was clear that this department didn't have much of an inclination towards martial soul cultivation in the academy. There was also a certain amount of competition for resources between the 2 departments. Zhou Yi was a teacher of the Martial Soul Department, but he didn't expect her to send a student of the Martial Soul Department to the Soul Tool Department as expected. Women were all extroverted. "No problem." Wang Feng nodded. "I've studied soul tool technology before. Due to the fact that spiritual-type martial souls possess powerful spiritual power, they're able to greatly improve the assembly of various compact components and the carving of special inscription formations." "Senior, you also understand soul tool technology?" Zhou Yi asked in astonishment. Just based on this sentence, he clearly had a deep understanding of soul tool technology. Was he omnipotent? Wang Feng didn't answer. With his spiritual power, he could easily control the mysterious underworld spiked 10,000 years ago. He could change it into various forms and carry out all sorts of strange attacks. Later on, he could even use it to kill people 10,000 years later. With such powerful spiritual power control, soul tool techniques were simply too easy for Wang Feng. When Zhu Zi and Ku had shown him the flying-type soul tool, he'd been able to see through most of it with a single glance. Wang Feng knew everything about the structure of the soul tool's internal components and the inscription formations on the soul tool's core. He even knew where the problem with the flying-type soul tool was. Seeing that Wang Feng didn't answer, Zhou Yi didn't ask any further. She was the teacher in charge of this batch of freshmen, and happened to be in charge of Huiyuhao's class. However, she'd also witnessed his potential. This was especially so after seeing his silver-patterned silkworm and the soul rings that were gradually becoming stronger. She had a vague idea of how powerful a soul charger was, and guessed that he was very likely Wang Feng's disciple. "What else do you want?" Wang Feng continued to ask. Zhou Yi hesitated for a moment, then said, "I heard that Senior will become a teacher in the academy, and help some soul masters become the first batch of soul chargers? My wife also has a disciple." When she heard about this, she felt that it was very interesting. "If possible, I hope that Senior can choose my lover's disciple as your student." Of course, his talent and aptitude are also very strong. Wang Feng laughed. "Teacher Zhou, a person's energy is limited. Regardless of whether they were soul masters, soul engineers, or soul contractors. Unless you have a strong mental strength to support it, otherwise, having 3 professions at the same time will cause you to lose sight of one and lose sight of another. Aren't you worried that your lover's disciple won't be able to improve in terms of soul tool technology?" Zhou Yi seemed to have already thought about this point. She smiled and said, "Senior, you're right. However, if you encounter a bottleneck in one of these areas, can't you just change your path and try again? Maybe I can get some new inspiration?" Hearing this, Wang Feng laughed out loud. These teachers all had their own ideas. However, that was the truth. "No problem, I agree." Wang Feng smiled. "Thank you, Senior." Zhou Yi bowed respectfully towards Wang Feng. This was actually a request from her lover. Perhaps the students didn't know much about soul contractors, and they didn't know much about them. For girls like Wang Dong they only wanted to raise a cute soul beast. But for many soul cultivators with profound cultivation, they knew just how great of an influence a soul contract master could have on a soul cultivator. They could even change the structure of the world. After Zhou Yi left, Wang Feng packed up and wanted to see how the competition was going. As he walked along the riverbank towards the teaching area, Wang Feng sniffed the breeze by the lakeside. He was thinking about the first batch of soul contractors. "Boss, how many students do you intend to take in?" Long Xie asked curiously. 7. Back then, Little 3 and the others were Shrek's 7 monsters. "I can take in 7 of them," Wang Feng said. "No more than 10. With this batch of soul contractors, Wang Feng would be able to observe the life contract better and perfect it." The man and beast chatted casually. At this moment, a red dot appeared from the lakeside. It was accompanied by a scorching aura. "Boss, something's happening at the Sea God's Lake." Long Xie's voice could be heard. Wang Feng sensed it too. The geography of the Sea God's Pavilion was similar to the ring-shaped island on the Sea God's Island. At this moment, in the distance, there was a small red dot running on the surface of the water, madly rushing towards the shore of the lake. With Wang Feng's eyesight, he could see it very clearly. It was a lady. She was burning with a layer of fire. She was around 20 years old. She had a charming face and a great figure. Her fiery red hair surprised Wang Feng. He felt that she was familiar. Wang Feng was stunned when he saw the martial soul on his opponent's body. Scorching aura surged towards him. The fire on her body became brighter and brighter. She looked like a sun. She exuded an extreme heat. Everywhere she passed, the lake water below would evaporate into countless clouds of mist. She was extremely fast. She looked like a fighter jet flying across the lake. She caused a lot of exhaust. Her aura was terrifying. Very soon, the lady reached the lakeside. She had lost her mind. She didn't control the fire on her body. She allowed the scorching heat to roast her surroundings. At the same time, a blinding ball of fire rose from her hand. Rumble! Water pillars that were dozens of meters tall bloomed in this ball of fire. At this moment, the lady seemed to have noticed the students on the lakeside. The flames in her hand emitted a demonic light and fell towards the lakeside. In an instant, many students on the lakeside screamed and ran away. Fortunately, today was the day of the entrance exam. There weren't many people on the lakeside. Very soon, there was no one left. Many of the senior students were very familiar with her. They ran and shouted, "Run! She's coming again!" It was obvious that this wasn't the first time they had experienced something like this. As the students ran away one after another, the girl with flames all over her body turned her gaze to Wang Feng, who was the only one left. With a sharp whistle, the woman's enchanting peach blossom eyes were burning with pure flames, purple flames. This is, Wang Feng looked at the flames on the lady's body and the phoenix wings on her back. He was speechless. Isn't this Fatty Ma's evil phoenix martial soul? This girl, could it be that she lost control of her evil fire? P.S. 5 chapters today, there will be more tomorrow. End of chapter. Chapter 11:11. Never in his wildest dreams did Wang Feng expect to see Fatty's evil phoenix martial soul here. Could she be Fatty's descendant? Wang Feng felt a little strange. Fatty became the fire god. Although Bai Chenxiang's talent was limited, she followed Fatty to the godly realm. Logically speaking, even if they had descendants, they couldn't have stayed in the Douluo continent. Taking 10,000 steps back, even if there was a descendant left behind on the Douluo continent, it was impossible for them to inherit Fatty's evil phoenix flame. Fatty's martial soul had mutated into a 10-headed phoenix. His descendants should also be 10-headed phoenixes. They shouldn't be the original evil phoenix. Furthermore, it had been 10,000 years. Wang Feng felt extremely strange. That familiar aura made Wang Feng turn his head slightly. The sound of flames exploding could be heard. Wang Feng thought for a few seconds before taking out Lin Lord Icy Wood's egg. Instantly, the temperature in the air rose. The aura of absolute ice in the egg completely dispersed the surrounding heat. Lin Lord Icy Wood's egg was now the color of ice crystals. The enormous Xiantian essence within had already fused with Lin Lord Icy Wood's soul. Lin Lord Icy Wood was also the purest and most ancient elemental spirit in the world. It was stronger than the Snow Empress and possessed the power of absolute ice. It was too easy to suppress such an evil fire aura. However, after the Snow Empress woke up, she should be stronger than Lin Lord Icy Wood. Go! Wang Feng held the egg in his hand in midair. That figure seemed to have felt the coldness and quickly flew towards Wang Feng. The flames in her hand were actually frozen when they came into contact with the egg. It was extremely strange. Even the shape of the flames could be seen clearly through the ice crystals. Lin Lord Icy Wood was awake inside the egg. It was just that it was accumulating its form. The power of absolute ice was so strong that it could even freeze a heavenly tribulation. It was very powerful. This was a power that surpassed the ultimate element. To a certain extent, it was close to the power of laws. Otherwise, Lin Lord Icy Wood wouldn't be so strong. Seeing that the figure was attracted to him, Wang Feng took a step forward and struck the back of the woman's shoulder with a chop. Ah! The woman moaned softly and fell to the ground. Taking a closer look, Wang Feng discovered that this girl was indeed a peerless beauty. However, perhaps due to the eruption of the evil flame, her face was incomparably red. Her gaze was as if she had drunk a few dozen pounds of wine, and her pupils were dilated. It was obvious that she had lost consciousness due to the evil flame in her martial spirit. When Ma Hongjuan's evil fire erupted back then, he relied on going to brothels to vent it. Wang Feng suddenly thought of this. However, after so many years, judging from her cultivation and age, she should be one of the top students in the Shrek Academy. The Shrek Academy had been developing for so many years. Logically speaking, there should be a way to help this girl suppress it. Back then, Ma Hongjun could only go to brothels because the conditions were too poor. He could only use the most unskilled method to suppress the evil fire. At this time, several figures floated over from the shore of the lake. They seemed to be searching for something. The three of them were led by an old man. He immediately noticed Wang Feng and Ma Xiaotao, who were standing on the shore. "Xiaotao is here," the old man shouted, and the other two immediately stopped searching and quickly came to Wang Feng's side. "It's you." The old man in the lead was hale and hearty. He had white hair and a youthful face. After seeing that Ma Xiaotao was fine, his nervous expression eased. Then, he looked at Wang Feng and was slightly surprised. "You know me?" Wang Feng also looked at the two of them in surprise. However, when he remembered that this place came from the island, he more or less understood. "Sole Contract Master, Wang Feng. How can we not know each other?" The old man laughed. "I am Lin Songxing, a consecrator of the Sea God's Pavilion. These two are also consecrators." A consecrator of the Sea God's Pavilion meant that he was an elder of the Sea God's Pavilion. "Elder Lin, let's take a look at Xiaotao's situation first," a white-robed old man on the left hurriedly said. Lin Songxing nodded and walked to Ma Xiaotao's side. At this time, the evil fire on Ma Xiaotao's body had been completely suppressed by the power of absolute ice. Her scarlet skin was disappearing at a speed visible to the naked eye. A faint green soul power exploded from Lin Songxing's body. It was filled with the aura of life and entered the girl's body. After a while, Lin Songxing was slightly startled. The evil fire on Xiaotao's body seems to have completely recovered. Moreover, it won't recur for at least half a year. Hearing this, the two teachers at the side were instantly shocked. Lin Songxing raised his head and looked at Wang Feng. "Did you do it?" "You can say so," Wang Feng replied. "To be precise, it was Egg who did it. From what I know, Xiaotao's evil fire can only be suppressed by ice and water-type soul power. To be able to suppress it for so long, even ice-type soul power can't do it. You are." The white-robed old man looked at Wang Feng with uncertainty. "Shouldn't you tell me about this girl's situation first?" Wang Feng asked back. Her attack was also because the surrounding people ran quickly. Otherwise, many people would have been injured. Hearing this, the white-robed old man was stunned and quickly explained the girl's situation. After hearing this, Wang Feng felt a little speechless. This was probably really Ma Hongjuan's descendant. Moreover, Wang Feng was sure that this was definitely not Ma Hongjun and Bai Qinxiang's descendant. This was because when Ma Hongjun and Bai Qinxiang were together, his martial soul had completely changed. Especially after Ma Hongjun consumed the sparrow-crowned phoenix tail sunflower, his martial soul was no longer corroded by the evil fire. This was very likely the descendant of Ma Hongjun before he consumed the sparrow-crowned phoenix tail sunflower. It was possible that he had a one-night stand with a woman, of course. Wang Feng didn't rule out the possibility that something similar to Ma Hongjuan's situation had happened in the past 10,000 years. "Don't you have a solution?" Wang Feng frowned. "The evil fire in her martial soul can be cured by consuming a special natural treasure." "Don't tell me that the Shrek Academy doesn't have any natural treasures after so many years? I remember that the Tang sect occupies a treasured land. With the relationship between the Shrek Academy and the Tang sect, it shouldn't be a problem for them to obtain an immortal herb, right?" Wang Feng questioned. "It was fine in the past," Lin Songxing sighed. "The place you're talking about is called the Icefire Yin-Yang Well, right? That place was occupied by the evil beasts a few hundred years ago. That soul beast forest has become the evil demon forest." Hearing this, Wang Feng was stunned. "It was occupied? What about soul rings?" Wang Feng continued to frown. The solution to her evil fire is to obtain an ice-type soul ring that can suppress and even change it. With the relationship between humans and the extreme north, it shouldn't be difficult to find a few soul beasts that died accidentally and obtain soul rings, right? End of chapter. Chapter 11-12. The extreme north was marked on the map as a friendly soul beast forest for humans. Even if they couldn't enter to hunt soul beasts, there were bound to be many soul beasts there, either because of fighting or because of their lifespan. There were bound to be death. Wang Feng didn't believe that Qing Qing and the rest were so stingy. They wouldn't keep soul beasts that had died of natural causes. It's possible, Elder Lin whispered, but it would have been possible if it was a few decades ago. But in the past 10 years, the extreme north has been plagued by demonic beasts. Many ice-type soul beasts have been infected with the aura of demonic beasts after their deaths, and it's not easy to absorb them. They can't be easily absorbed unless we send Elder Mu and Elder Xian to negotiate with the other overlords. But, Elder Lin sighed as he spoke until here. But it wasn't worth it. Although this girl was very talented, and was one of the best in the academy, she wasn't worth sending 2 rank 99 titled Douluo to do this for her. If there was any danger, these 2 rank 99 titled Douluo were Shrek's pillars. After all, the extreme north was too dangerous. Even if the other overlords had helped humans a few times, who knew what would happen inside? Wang Feng focused his gaze. Were these evil beasts already so powerful? Furthermore, ordinary ice-type soul beasts' soul rings won't be able to suppress Xiaotao's evil fire. Elder Lin shook his head and said, they still need an ultimate ice-type soul beast. Otherwise, if their elements aren't equal, the soul ring will be corroded by Xiaotao's evil fire, and irreversible changes will occur. When that happens, it'll be even more troublesome. Soul rings from ultimate soul beasts are even rarer. The other overlords won't give up such soul beasts. That's because such soul beasts are very rare even among soul beasts. Otherwise, Elder Mu and Elder Xian would have given it a try. This might be the main reason. Wang Feng shook his head. The Shrek Academy didn't do anything wrong. Soul beasts with the power of ice were usually soul beasts that had cultivated for more than 100,000 years. For example, the Ice Jade Empress Scorpion, the Skydream Ice Worm, the Snow Empress, and so on. Qing Qing probably wouldn't give such a soul beast to a human as a soul ring. Therefore, we can only use a soul master with a water-type martial soul to temporarily suppress it. It's just that as Little Tao's cultivation level grew higher and higher, the evil fire in her body became more and more vigorous, and the suppression time became shorter and shorter. Elder Lin looked at Wang Feng. But could it be that he had twin martial spirits? The other martial soul possessed the power of ice? The three of them exchanged glances. However, Wang Feng shook his head and took his leave. He was only borrowing Qilin Lord Bing Mu's absolute ice power to temporarily suppress it. Moreover, whether it was the power of absolute ice or the power of extreme ice, they were all external forces and could only be suppressed. Unless Ma Xiaotao had a soul ring that belonged to her, or if she used a special treasure, she wouldn't be able to change her situation. Ma Xiaotao's condition was much worse than Ma Hongjuan's. Ma Hongjun had taken the Sparrow Crown Phoenix Tail Flower when he was over level 30, and his condition had improved a long time ago. But Ma Xiaotao was a soul emperor. Her evil fire was far stronger than Ma Hongjuan's. Suppressing it was only a temporary solution. Every time it was suppressed, the effect would decrease. If he had the primal Chaos Green Lotus in his main body, he would be able to purify it easily. However, his main body still loved the 5-color mountain. Wang Feng didn't have time to care about this for now. Lin Songxing was a little curious as he watched Wang Feng leave. This person is really mysterious. Lin Songxing sighed. However, he can solve Xiaotao's problem. Elder Lin, He will become a teacher in the academy in a few days. Why don't you let Ma Xiaotao become his student? Maybe he can improve Xiaotao's condition. We can also take a look at that soul contract master. Soul contract master. The white-robed elder frowned. I feel that this soul contract master isn't the right path. How many years of grudges have humans and soul beasts accumulated? How many soul beasts have we killed? How many humans have soul beasts killed? Even if we become partners and have a special agreement, who knows if those soul beasts will devour their masters? Let him choose the new disciples. That's enough. It's not good to send Xiaotao over like this, right? No matter what, Xiaotao is a genius of our Shrek Academy. Lin Songxing sighed. The appearance of a soul contract master wasn't approved by all the elders in the Sea God's pavilion. Some felt that it was good, while others felt that it wasn't good. Although he agreed, there were also voices of opposition. Xiaozhe, do you have any other way to solve Xiaotao's problem? It's not a long-term solution to keep suppressing her. Lin Songxing shook his head. The white-robed elder also sighed. How could he not know this logic? Let Xiaotao choose? Lin Songxing said. The white-robed elder nodded slightly. At this moment, the girl let out a few soft moans and slowly opened her eyes. She looked around and said in a low voice, Elder Lin, did I lose control again? Elder Lin nodded and told her what happened just now. What do you think? Elder Lin looked at her. You must have heard of this person. His origin is mysterious and his strength is profound. He also agreed to our suggestion to become a teacher of the Shrek Academy and spread the word about soul contract masters. He might also have a powerful ice-type martial soul, which will be of great help to you. Hearing this, Ma Xiaotao laughed and said, Elder Lin, didn't he choose the students himself? It doesn't seem to be a question of whether I'm willing or not. It's whether he's willing to be a teacher or not. However, it does sound fun. A rank 20 soul master is going to be my teacher. How exciting! Ma Xiaotao stood up and dried her clothes. That seems to be the case. Lin Songxing was stunned. Xiaotao, you should think about it more. The white-robed elder said. From what he heard, Ma Xiaotao was clearly very interested in this soul contract master. Teacher, leave this matter to me. Ma Xiaotao thought for a moment. He helped me once, which can be considered as saving half of my life. I'll repay my kindness. As for becoming a teacher, don't trouble yourself. Helping me suppress it once should consume a lot of energy. If we become his student with the goal of letting him suppress the evil fire in my body, it's too much of a goal. If I were him, I would definitely be unhappy. I definitely wouldn't agree to such a big trouble. Xiaotao, you've become more sensible. Lin Songxing was stunned and said with a smile, even if you can't become his student, you can become his partner. Your aptitude is unique in our academy. There are only 2 or 3 people who can compare to you. If you chase after him, it should be very easy. With such an ice-type martial soul as your partner, your problem will be cured. The white-robed elder frowned, but he felt that it wasn't the case. That soul contract master seemed powerful, but how dangerous was he? If there was a day when that soul contract beast became stronger and wasn't restrained by humans, wouldn't it be raising a tiger and inviting calamity? However, this still depended on Xiaotao's own choice. Ma Xiaotao blushed and snorted. I don't want to become someone's partner because of my martial soul. Chase after him? Ma Xiaotao, will definitely not do such a thing. This person is very handsome, the kind that is unique in the world. There is no one like him. I'll think about it. End of this chapter. Chapter 11-13. When Wang Feng arrived at the new assessment area, it had already begun. The enormous plaza was divided into dozens of areas. Every area had a teacher in charge of the assessment. The competition had already begun. Wang Feng only needed to watch for a while before he found Huo Yuhao and the others. After watching for a while, Wang Feng lost interest. Huoyuhao, Wang Dong, and Xiao Xiao. Not many people could compare to the combined strength of the three of them. Although Huoyuhao wasn't very strong, he had 2 soul skills. Coupled with his soul-bound beast, he had an extra soul skill. Although it was only around rank 10, he wasn't inferior to a rank 20 soul master. From this, one could see the strength of a soul charmer. Although there was a certain period of cultivation, however, it was an existence that could easily crush those of the same level. With an additional soul beast, even if it was an extremely weak silver-patterned silkworm, it would still have an additional soul skill. In a battle, the significance of having an extra soul skill was self-evident. Therefore, why were soul charmers able to change the situation of the world? Those with foresight could easily see through this. During the following few days of battles, Wang Feng occasionally watched. If it weren't for the fact that he had a special relationship with these 2 children, Wang Feng wouldn't have been interested in watching a battle between children. Something worth mentioning was that Wang Feng could faintly feel that Wang Dong and Huoyuhao's martial souls were somewhat compatible. Logically speaking, the attribute difference between their martial souls was very large. It was very strange for their compatibility to be so high. Therefore, when the 2 of them found Wang Feng, he was extremely astonished. According to the Federation's research on martial soul fusion over the past few years, martial soul fusion can be divided into 3 types. Wang Feng slowly explained the information he had learned about the Federation's research on martial soul fusion. The first type is compatibility in terms of attribute, while the second type is compatibility in terms of type. At the same time, the compatibility has to be at least 50% before a martial soul fusion can be carried out. The last type is an acquired martial soul fusion. It refers to the resonance between 2 people's martial souls after a long period of interaction and companionship. This research was the result of the Federation's research over the past few years. It was obtained from the experiments of many soul masters. The first 2 types were innate martial soul compatibility, which was usually determined at birth. The second type was an acquired martial soul compatibility, which required an extremely long period of time to nurture. Therefore, in theory, any martial soul could fuse with another martial soul. However, it was too difficult to achieve an acquired martial soul fusion. Not only did they need to spend a long time with each other, they also needed to resonate with their own emotions. This required their own comprehension. It was hard to find 2 people who could do this. Most of the people who could do it were those who had been together for decades and had gone through trials and tribulations, yet they were still able to maintain their original feelings for each other. The 2 of you have only known each other for 3 months. Your martial souls are not compatible. Wang Feng pondered for a long time. He suddenly recalled the gray light that had flown into Huoyuhao's body that day. The radiant butterfly goddess represented the power of the holy element of light. It had nothing to do with his spiritual spirit eyes. It couldn't be said to be compatible, but it also couldn't be said to be incompatible. In terms of species, they were polar opposites. One was a top-grade butterfly-type beast martial spirit, while the other was a body martial spirit. If it was a plant-type martial soul, it would have a certain degree of compatibility with the radiant butterfly goddess. We don't know either. When we were fighting against a pair of siblings, they used a martial soul fusion skill. We were curious and wanted to give it a try. I think we succeeded, Huoyuhao said awkwardly. The Federation's research on martial soul fusion was relatively thorough, and the classification was reasonable. This martial soul fusion skill was a secret 10,000 years ago, but it couldn't be considered a secret now. If it existed, it existed. If it didn't, it didn't. Although it was only a strand of remnant soul, it surpassed the spiritual power of a soul master in this world. It should be similar to the divine sense of a divine king. Wang Feng pondered. It was possible that this strand of divine sense had caused their martial soul fusion. If that was the case, then Wang Dong's sea of consciousness should have a similar level of divine sense. In that case, it could only be Tang San's. Wang Dong, come here. Wang Feng glanced at Wang Dong. Wang Dong made an O sound and walked in front of Wang Feng. A bright light flashed through Wang Feng's eyes. His spiritual power condensed and entered Wang Dong's sea of consciousness. In an instant, an enormous pressure was transmitted from Wang Dong's sea of consciousness. After entering Wang Dong's sea of consciousness, Wang Feng saw a bluish-gold light floating. It's indeed a strand of divine sense left behind by Little Three, but this strand of divine sense is clearly separated from Little Three. This means that the God realm has really lost contact with the Douluo continent. Otherwise, this strand of divine sense wouldn't be doing nothing. Wang Fengxin thought to himself. These two strands of divine sense, which were of similar quality, were extremely likely to cause a martial soul fusion to mutate. He pondered for a moment. The appearance of the evil soul beast had allowed Wang Fengxin to confirm that the Douluo continent had lost contact with the God realm. Wang Feng was even 100% sure that there were powers from other worlds invading this continent. It was just that the Federation hadn't announced this matter. After all, the Federation wouldn't announce this matter until it reached a certain level. It's fine. Wang Feng retracted his spiritual power and said calmly, since it's a martial soul fusion, the two of you should train more. It's fate that the two of you can perform a martial soul fusion in the Netherworld continent. Wang Dong curled his lips. Huoyu Hao scratched his head. But I feel weird hugging a guy and fusing with him. Hearing this, Wang Dong was immediately enraged. Do you think I want to hug you? Your entire body stinks. Aren't all boys like this? Huoyu Hao said awkwardly. If you train regularly, you'll definitely smell like sweat. As speaking of which, Wang Dong, your body doesn't smell like sweat. On the contrary, it smells good, don't tell me you. With that, Huoyu Hao suddenly paused. Wang Dong's heart skipped a beat. Don't tell me, he saw through it? Don't tell me you sprayed perfume? Huoyu Hao couldn't help but laugh. Wang Dong, you're a man. Why do you spray perfume? I was wondering why your bed smells so good. Wang Dong was speechless. Wang Feng was also speechless. Huoyu Hao was really slow. Wang Dong heaved a sigh of relief, but was also a little embarrassed. It's none of your business. Doesn't your teacher smell good too? That's different. Huoyu Hao shook his head. My teacher smells like nature. Your body smells like a girl's. Hee hee. Wang Dong stomped on Huoyu Hao's foot and left. Huoyu Hao felt a heart-wrenching pain from his foot. He couldn't help but hug his foot and jump around. Teacher, why did he get angry for no reason? Huoyu Hao complained. You compared him to a girl. How could he not get angry? Wang Feng said. If someone else compared you to a girl, would you get angry? Huoyu Hao suddenly understood. He asked, then what should I do? He's a boy. Wang Feng continued, think about it. What kind of praise do boys like to receive? They like to be praised for being tall, strong, smart, and mighty. Huoyu Hao suddenly understood and nodded. I understand. I'll go and apologize. With that, Huoyu Hao quickly ran towards Wang Dong. End of chapter. Chapter 11-14. Boss, you're screwing him over. Long Xie was rolling around in the soul domain. If that little girl hears Huoyu Hao praising her like that, she'll be so angry that she'll explode like a volcano. What do you know? I'm creating an opportunity for them to flirt with each other, and giving her some pointers. Wang Feng couldn't help but sneer. You've been single for so many years. Do you even know what love is? Long Xie was speechless. How heart-wrenching. Although Long Xie had lived for so many years, he really didn't know what love was. In the following few days, Wang Feng was a little lazy, so he secretly got the Skydream Iceworm to teach Huoyu Hao martial soul fusion skills. After a few more days, the finals finally arrived. Since it was the finals, Zhou Yi invited Wang Feng to watch. When they arrived at the finals, there were a few more people besides the judges. That's the Martial Soul Department's Outer Courtyard's teaching director, Du Weiluan. Zhou Yi introduced him. The other old man is our Martial Soul Department's dean, Yan Xiaozhe. There's also a tall and sturdy old man, the Soul Tool Department's vice dean. His name is Duo, and he's also my lover's boss. The Shrek Academy had 2 deans in charge of the inner courtyard. The 2 vice deans were in charge of the outer courtyard. Both of them were top-notch experts, and were existences at the level of titled Doulu. Wang Feng found the Martial Soul Department's dean somewhat familiar. Wasn't he the white-clothed old man he'd met 2 days ago? How could a mere freshman exam attract so many deans? Wang Feng asked curiously. Normally, the deans wouldn't come to watch the freshman exam. Zhou Yi explained. Although the aptitudes of this batch of freshmen are generally very high, they're still very young. There are quite a few soul elders before the age of 12. However, it's mainly because of you. After the freshman exam, they'll usually go to different departments. Simply put, they'll snatch people away. However, because of the Sea God's Pavilion, they've already agreed to your request. You're the one who chose these students first. The deans of these 2 departments don't think highly of soul contract masters, and feel that it's a crooked path. Naturally, they'll be more concerned about it. Huiyuhao's soul power rank is relatively low, but he has a rare body and spiritual type martial soul, so the Martial Soul Department definitely won't let him go. However, the Soul Tool Department definitely won't let him go. This disciple of mine is quite popular. Wang Feng couldn't help but laugh. Aren't you worried that Huiyuhao's upper limit might be because there are so few spiritual-type soul beasts? Zhou Yi shook her head. It's not that they don't exist. Only soul beasts with true ultimate attributes are the rarest. The spirit element was rare. Moreover, Qi was talented and hard-working. It won't be difficult for the Academy to find a spiritual-type soul beast for him. At this moment, as the 2 of them conversed, in the battle zone the 2 teams also walked up. Wang Feng was a little familiar with Huiyuhao's opponent. It was the inherited martial soul of Dai Mubai's family, the White Tiger, as well as Zhu Zhuqing's family's inherited martial soul, the Netherworld Civet. The other person had a rare ice-type martial soul, the Cold Capybara. White Tiger, Netherworld Civet. Cold Capybara, isn't this Shui Yu-er's martial spirit? Wang Fengxin said. After Shui Yu-er and Dai Mubai got together, they did leave behind descendants, but they obviously didn't leave the family. Afterwards, the Dai and Zhu families continued to work closely together. The 2 of them had an innate martial soul fusion skill that was highly compatible with each other. Therefore, the 2 families had always been working together. Now, they were one of the strongest families in the Star Luo government. With an innate martial soul fusion skill, the 2 families had the confidence to challenge each other. As long as their martial souls didn't disappear and they didn't act recklessly, it would be very difficult for them to decline. However, many powerful families had appeared in the Star Luo government over the years. There were still many families that could compare to the Dai and Zhu families. His aptitude is much better than Dai Mubai's when he was young. Dai Huabin, a 12-year-old soul elder. Wang Feng swept his gaze over them. Back then, Dai Mubai's talent had been outstanding, and he'd only reached rank 30 at the age of 15. However, the aptitudes of people nowadays were generally better than 10,000 years ago. Speaking of which, the Dark Moon Elf martial soul of the Zhu clan's ancestor, Zhu Zhuqing, has never appeared in the Zhu clan. Zhou Yi sighed. Unknowingly, it became a legendary martial soul. Later generations said that this might be related to Wang Feng. There's also the 9 Treasures Glazed Pagoda of the 9 Treasures Glazed sect. Are there any disciples from the 9 Treasures Glazed sect in this batch? Wang Feng asked. Of course there are. She's very talented and is a soul elder. Her name is Ning Tian, and she's the descendant of the Seven Treasures Glazed Tile sect master, Ning Fengji. Rumor has it that she'll awaken to become the Nine Treasures Glazed Pagoda. Zhou Yi smiled. Over the years, the Nine Treasures Glazed Pagoda martial souls have appeared in the Nine Treasures Glazed Pagoda, but they haven't passed it down. However, their sect should have a method to evolve a martial soul into the Nine Treasures Glazed Pagoda. It's just that it's not that easy to achieve. Wang Feng nodded slightly. Back then, Ning Rongrong had eaten the beautiful silk tulip that he'd given her. After that, he hadn't gone to the God realm directly with Ning Rongrong. He'd even spent some time in the mortal world, so he might have left behind a pure-blooded descendant. He might have been brought to the God realm by Ning Rongrong after he died. After all, Ning Rongrong had inherited the title of a rank 1 god. At this moment, a furious roar sounded from the stage. A huge, light purple tiger that was more than 2 meters tall appeared on the stage. It's the Netherworld White Tiger, a fusion skill. Zhou Yi's tone was a little strange. As expected, the fusion skill of these two families has been inherited by this junior. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been sent to the academy. Huoyu Hao and Wang Dong might not be a match for him even though they can fuse their martial souls. She was the teacher of Huoyu Hao's class, so she was naturally more aware of his situation. Wang Feng wasn't worried. What he was worried about was that they wouldn't be able to withstand the power of the collision between the two martial soul fusion skills. As he thought until here, Wang Feng released his soul ring. He wanted to release Long Xie to prevent any accident. The strength of a fusion skill was related to the level of one's soul power, as well as the strength of the fusion skill itself. At this moment, Xiao Xiao was very quick-witted. She took out her light green flute and started playing a special song. The gigantic white tiger was startled by the sound of the flute. At this moment, Huoyu Hao and Wang Dong immediately used their fusion skill. Wang Feng knew that their martial soul fusion skill originated from the influence of their two divine senses. Its power was much stronger than a pure fusion skill. This kind of divine sense was the divine sense of an expert that surpassed the god rank. Naturally, it was extraordinary. The beautiful radiant butterfly goddess attached itself to Wang Dong's body and turned into a huge, dazzling golden projection. Huoyu Hao's spirit eyes also revealed a projection. It turned into a dazzling golden pupil that emitted an intense ray of light. Then, it landed on the radiant butterfly goddess and exploded with a dazzling light. It formed a golden path that rushed towards the Netherworld White Tiger. At the same time, the Netherworld White Tiger spat out a purple pillar of energy. Terrifying energy undulations came from the stage. Zhou Yi's expression changed. She could clearly feel these soul power undulations. However, no one would have thought that a mere freshman assessment would produce soul power undulations of this level. A fusion skill of a rank 30 soul elder was something that even a rank 40 soul master wouldn't be able to withstand. Huoyu Hao and Wang Dong were the same. End of chapter. Chapter 11:15. Long Xie, go and swallow it. Wang Feng shouted coldly. Fortunately, he was prepared. Long Xie revealed his soul rings and turned into a streak of yellow light. He was the first to appear on the stage. He was clearly faster than the other figure. Long Xie was almost 9 meters tall. He had cultivated for more than 8,000 years now. It could be said that compared to 3 months ago, his body shape was completely different. The most obvious change was that a pair of faint red wings had grown out of his back. However, they were still small and not fully formed. Only when he reached 10,000 years would his wings undergo huge changes. Long Xie, who was the size of a small building, looked extremely terrifying. He landed on the stage. Looking at the two energies colliding, it suddenly opened its huge mouth, and the earthy yellow light was like a vortex. A yellow whirlpool of energy appeared in his mouth, and he swallowed the 2 streaks of energy. 2 different colored lights flashed in Long Xie's stomach. Following this, Long Xie spat them into the sky. The two streaks of energy formed a yellow beam of light that shot into the sky and let out a deafening boom. After the boom, the air was very quiet. Huoyu Hao and Wang Dong were already lying on the ground. Dai Huabin and the others were also lying on the ground. The person who had landed on the stage at the same time as Long Xie and was about to stop him was also stunned. Looking at this huge dragon, they were a little shocked for a moment. This crag dragon didn't have such an exaggerated size 3 months ago. How long had it been? Your soul beast, Zhou was shocked. You've nurtured it to this level in 3 months? What's its cultivation now? How can a soul-carving beast increase its strength faster than us soul masters? She remembered that 3 months ago, this rock beast was only 2 meters tall, not even 3 meters tall. Wang Fengxin thought to himself, I've been feeding this stupid dragon those 5 colored stones every day. If it can't grow to this level in 3 months, even a soul sage would be injured if I were to take those 2 martial soul fusion skills seriously. Zhou Yi was astonished. 3 months ago, this crag dragon couldn't even defeat a soul emperor. It was much weaker than her, a soul emperor. It had only been 3 months. This crag dragon was probably much weaker than Zhang Lishuan. Mine is a little special. Wang Feng counted. Normally, normal soul-bonded beasts won't improve so quickly. Zhou Yi remained silent. The weakest aspect of soul beasts compared to humans was that their cultivation speed was extremely slow. Once it became a human's soul-bonded beast, how much would its cultivation speed increase? Even if it wasn't as fast as Wang Feng's, it was definitely much faster than the original, right? Zhou Yi increasingly felt that this soul contract master was too mysterious. He hadn't seen Huoyu Hao's silver-patterned silkworm often, so he wasn't sure how much it had improved. But from the looks of it, after becoming a soul-bound beast of a soul master, its cultivation speed would be much faster than that of a normal soul beast. Long Xie had used his soul skill to devour the 2 martial soul fusion skills before spitting them out. His soul skill couldn't truly devour an enemy's attack. It was a kind of devouring and storing, and then it had to be released. Otherwise, one would also be injured. After that, the evil dragon flew towards Wang Feng and entered his soul ring. For a moment there was silence. Cough, cough. At this moment, Du Weiluan coughed a few times and said, Martial soul fusion skills are too strong for you guys to control. In the future, martial soul fusion skills will be prohibited in the freshman assessment. However, I have to say that this batch of freshmen is extremely outstanding. This is the first time I've seen 12-year-old freshmen use a martial soul fusion skill in the freshman assessment, and 2 of them at that. As the teaching director, he'd been stunned for a moment. He hadn't expected such a situation to occur, so he'd been a bit slower. However, it also seemed like someone had acted in time to stop it. Otherwise, the consequences would have been unimaginable. Director, what's the result? Xiao Xiao giggled and said, We won, right? Take a look at the traces left behind by Huoyu Hao and Wang Dong's martial soul fusion skill on the ground. This trace hasn't completely disappeared yet. It was only an energy attack just now. This martial soul fusion skill has 2 uses. A long, golden trace was left on the ground. It resembled a golden path. Clearly, its effects hadn't completely disappeared. Du Weiluan stared at it for a while, then nodded slightly. There were strong and weak martial soul fusion skills. Although the Netherworld White Tiger was an ancient inheritance, it was still very powerful. Huoyu Hao and Wang Dong's martial soul fusion skill was even stronger. Seeing this, Huoyu Hao and Wang Dong forced themselves to stand up and smile. With that, the finals of the freshman assessment came to an end. All right, children, gather up. At this moment, Yan Xiaozhi walked out from the front and smiled. Before tomorrow's class allocation and rewards are announced, I have something important to announce to all of you. Qian Duo also walked out from the side. Their gazes landed on the distant Wang Feng. they'd clearly noticed him long ago. This was especially true when Long Xie had flown out. Very quickly, the students who'd passed the freshman assessment gathered in the plaza. Let me introduce myself first. I'm Yen Xiaozhe, the dean of Shrek's Martial Soul Academy. The person next to me is Qian Duo, the vice dean of the Soul Tool Department. Yen Xiaozhe looked at the children in front of him and said indifferently, "According to the situation, all of you who'd passed the assessment would have been assigned to one of our 2 departments. However, because of something that happened 3 months ago, our Shrek Academy gained a mysterious figure. He also gained a never-before-seen profession. A soul contract master. I'm sure all of you have heard of him, right? Just now, it was the soul contract master's soul beast that made a move and stopped the martial soul fusion skills of the 2 finalists." After hearing Yen Xiaozhe's words, the children below nodded their heads. Their eyes were filled with curiosity. A brand new profession means a brand new challenge. Yen Xiaozhe's words were like a gentle breeze. He wasn't imposing, but rather amiable. "Therefore, none of you will be assigned to either of our departments. This soul contract master will choose a few of you to become soul contract masters. I'll say the ugly words first. This is a brand new cultivation system. Whether it's our Martial Soul Federation or the Sun Moon Empire, this profession has never appeared before. There would be great danger in this. Therefore, all of you have the right to refuse and choose our Martial Soul Department or the Soul Tool Department. We won't force you. Becoming a soul contract master means that you'll become partners with a soul beast. This is an extremely dangerous matter." Yen Xiaozhe's gaze swept across the crowd. "We can't predict what kind of danger will appear." After hearing Yen Xiaozhe's words, many children quietened down. Many of the children quietened down. At the age of 12, they already possessed a certain level of thinking and judgment. Once any danger appears, we won't be able to help you immediately. Therefore, please make your choice carefully. A look flashed across Qian Duo's eyes. His voice was relatively louder. If you're willing to become a soul contract master and accept this new challenge, you can take a step forward. If you're not willing, you can take a step back. In fact, his words were already quite serious. However, he wasn't wrong. It was just that by saying it now, it was obvious that he wanted these children to choose their department. Wang Feng's eyes flashed. However, as soon as Yen Xiaozhe finished speaking, all of the students took a step forward. Seeing this scene, Yen Xiaozhe and Qian Duo looked at each other, and the corners of their mouths twitched. P.S. There are 2 more chapters. Chapter 11-16. The 2 of them had never expected that these little fellows would still make such a choice even though they had already said so much. Aren't they afraid of death? Do they know how dangerous that soul beast is? Becoming partners with a soul beast is like asking a tiger for its skin. The 2 deans were speechless. Children these days were really too bold. As the deans of the Martial Soul Department and Soul Tool Department in the Shrek Academy, they weren't just thinking about the same thing as the elders in the Sea God's Pavilion. Now that soul tools were flourishing, the importance of soul engineers was self-evident. However, soul masters were still important. But no matter which path they chose, it wasn't as dangerous as becoming a soul contractor. The concept of hunting soul beasts and obtaining soul rings was deeply ingrained in the hearts of humans, and it had been settled on this continent for countless years. For example, the 8 great overlords of the extreme north had helped humans many times. However, both parties were still very wary of each other. They wouldn't barge in for no reason. It wasn't hard to imagine how deep this concept was. They knew how strong a soul contractor was. He wasn't even rank 20, but he could fight Zhang Lishuan, who was a soul sage, with his own soul-bonded beast. This was partly because of how special this soul contractor was. However, there was no doubt about the strength of a soul contractor. But they were also much more dangerous than soul masters and soul engineers. How many battles had there been between soul beasts and humans? Not to mention world-class battles that involved the entire continent, there were countless beast hordes. Sai Yen Xiaozhe and Qian Duoduo sighed. Although many elders in the Sea God's pavilion thought highly of soul contractors, they weren't deans. However, as deans, they didn't think highly of him. If Elder Mu and Xian Zi were in the pavilion, they probably wouldn't think so either. Qian Duoduo walked forward and couldn't help but ask a little girl, "Child, can you tell me why you want to become a soul contractor?" A soul contractor is much more dangerous than a soul master. Aren't you afraid? The little girl thought for a moment and said, "Because of that big brother soul contractor." Qian Duoduo was shocked. "Why? Actually, it doesn't matter if we become a soul contractor, but he's too good-looking." The little girl blushed and said, "Being his student should be a form of enjoyment." After hearing this, Qian Duoduo and Yen Xiaozhe were confused. The two of them had never imagined that this was the reason that drove them to take a step forward. Old. Hee. Xiao Xiao, who was in front, couldn't help but laugh. "Aya, it's actually the same as what I thought," Che Wangdong said disdainfully. "Raising a cute soul beast is the most important reason to become a soul charmer. Danger? I'm not afraid." When Wang Feng heard this, he couldn't help but think to himself, as expected of Xiao Wu's daughter. Little Wudong also has half a soul beast's bloodline. She should be naturally close to soul beasts, right? However, when he heard that the reason why the child wanted to become a soul charmer was because he thought that he was too handsome, he couldn't help but feel a little embarrassed. Wang Feng could only sigh. These children were too realistic. "Don't tell me. I'm the only one who chose to become a soul contract master because of how powerful a soul contract master is?" Huoyu Hao asked softly. "That's right, there's only you." Wang Dong patted Huoyu Hao's shoulder. Huoyu Hao was speechless. What do these brats know? The Skydream ice worm in his arms said, "Even those two titled Douluo don't know how powerful a soul contract master is before they truly understand it. Little rat, when you grow up and prove it to them, they'll know. A soul contract master isn't just a simple soul beast." Huoyu Hao nodded his head heavily. At this moment, Wang Feng walked forward and glanced at the two of them. Yen Xiaozhe had met him before, but Qian Duoduo hadn't. However, the two of them didn't say much. As deans, they naturally wouldn't say much about the Sea God's pavilion's request. However, they still felt a little heartache when they saw so many good seedlings. What if something happened and they were crippled? Wang Feng looked at the bunch of children and laughed. "I'm very comforted that all of you want to become a soul contract master because you're attracted to me. It's not because you truly want to become a soul contract master. It's because this is the truth. It's very good that you can speak the truth." Yen Xiaozhe and Qian Duoduo's lips twitched. This person is indeed a little shameless. Qian Duoduo glanced at Yen Xiaozhe. "Speaking of which, Xiaotao from your side is also planning to become his student? Is that suitable?" This Wang Feng possesses the power of ice. To a certain extent, he's indeed Xiaotao's best partner. Furthermore, this is Xiaotao's own choice. However, he might not choose Xiaotao as his student. Yen Xiaozhe sighed. The two of them communicated with each other using their spiritual power. "However, old Qian, I heard that He Kaitu from your department is also going to become his student? Is that suitable? He's a rare genius from your soul tool department." "I have no choice. He Kaitu is Fan Yu's disciple. I have no right to ask." Qian Duoduo was also helpless. "Our soul tool department has nothing to do with soul beast. There's no need for this." The two of them looked at each other. At this moment, they heard Wang Feng speak again. "Actually, these two deans are right. Soul contract masters are very dangerous. Interacting with soul beasts is a very dangerous thing. Therefore, I'll only choose 3 to 4 people." Wang Feng scanned the few of them, As the first batch of soul contract masters, they were also experimental subjects. Therefore, Wang Feng didn't want to cheat too many people. Other than Huiyuhao, he also chose Wang Dong-er and Xiao Xiao. Wang Feng thought about the rest of the children, but didn't consider them for the time being. He really knows how to choose. Du Weiluan's mouth twitched. He had chosen the champion team of this year's freshman assessment. Qianduo's heart ached. Without mentioning the other two, Huiyuhao was an excellent seedling for a soul engineer. Just his special spiritual power alone was extraordinary. The rest of the children will gather tomorrow and be assigned to their respective departments. Du Weiluan heaved a sigh of relief when he saw Wang Feng choose the three of them. Fortunately, he only chose three. However, when he thought about the crag dragon that was close to 10,000 years old, he looked at the three children and wondered what changes they would undergo in the future. The children who weren't chosen weren't too disappointed. It was just like what they thought. There weren't many who were truly interested in soul contract masters. Most of them were attracted by Wang Feng's appearance. As the children dispersed, only the three of them were left. According to the Academy's rules, due to the uniqueness of soul renters and the fact that all of you are the champions of this examination, there are no exceptions. As the champions of this year's freshman assessment, the Academy will give you additional rights as core disciples. Du Weiluan looked at the three of them and said, "Apart from that, the Academy will reward you with some additional compensation. This will be your compensation for becoming a soul contract master." "There's compensation?" Huiyuhao was stunned. "Deans, why didn't you say that there was compensation?" Xiao Xiao pursed her lips. "You're obviously selfish." Yan Xiaozhe and Qian Duo laughed. They didn't mind Xiao Zhao's rebuttal. Although they didn't approve of soul contract masters, they were still magnanimous towards their students. Chapter 11-17. Go back and make your preparations. Wang Feng said, "Since you've become soul charters and are my students, you won't be able to follow the normal cultivation path for a long time. In 5 days, you'll follow me out of the academy." After hearing this, the few people behind him were stunned. "How do you plan on nurturing them?" Du Weiluan couldn't help but ask, "What do you plan on doing outside the academy?" "The academy's cultivation environment is the best." "Nonsense, of course we're going to find soul beasts." Wang Feng furrowed his brows. "How can soul charters be called soul charters if they don't have soul beast?" "But isn't this too fast?" Du Weiluan furrowed his brows. "They're still far from breaking through. 2 of them have only just reached rank 20, while the other is far from it. They don't even need soul rings." Wang Feng laughed. They were still looking at soul charters from a soul master's point of view. "You want them to nurture soul beasts in advance?" As the dean, Yan Xiaozhe was able to see through Wang Feng's intentions. "Naturally," Wang Feng slowly said. This dean's reaction was quite fast. "Just you?" Qian Duo asked. "Do you need the academy to send 2 more teachers to guard against danger?" "Danger?" Wang Feng couldn't help but laugh. "We're going to kill soul beasts, so it's not that dangerous. We're going to find soul beasts to partner with. Deans, after I bring them back, I'll give you a lecture. I'll explain the basics of soul charters in detail. If you have any prejudices against soul charters after listening to it, then I have nothing to say." Listen to a lecture. The 2 were startled. As deans, they were going to listen to a lecture? "We'll definitely be there when the time comes." Yan Xiaozhe pondered for a moment, then said indifferently, "I'd like to hear what you have to say. I'd like to see if there's anything special about soul charters." "Interesting." Qian Duo laughed. "Then we'll talk about it after you bring them back." Wang Feng smiled, but didn't say anything. "Teacher, isn't it a little too fast to go find soul beasts in 5 days?" Xiao Xiao suddenly felt somewhat excited. Her little face flushed red. "Yes, we're only rank 21. Wang Dong was somewhat doubtful. "It's not fast," Wang Feng said. You'll reach rank 30 in at most a year. According to your strength, you'll need a 10,000-year soul beast to reach rank 30, but 10,000-year soul beasts already have intelligence. It'll be very difficult to form a contract with a wild 10,000-year soul beast. Therefore, it's best to target a 1,000-year soul beast. At the same time, you have to develop a relationship with these soul beasts before you can sign a contract with them. This requires a process. So, we have to look for them in advance. It was still difficult to turn these children, who were already soul masters, into soul contracted masters. Comparatively speaking, Huoyu Hao was much better off. It was better to start as a soul renderer from the very beginning. Wang Dong and Xiao Xiao nodded, as if they understood something. Huoyu Hao understood this very well. His relationship with the silver-patterned silkworm was very close now. The silver-patterned silkworm's cultivation speed was very fast. Especially when he saw with his own eyes that his soul ring had changed from a 10-year soul ring to a 100-year soul ring, and then slowly to a 1,000-year soul ring. That sense of accomplishment was something that simply obtaining a soul ring couldn't compare to. He could clearly feel that he and the soul-carving beast had become stronger, and he was very motivated. Compared to simply increasing one's soul power rank, the feeling of satisfaction was much greater. The three of them returned to make their preparations. According to Wang Feng's estimates, they would only need 1 to 2 months at most to find a soul beast. They still had a lot of time to develop a relationship with the soul beasts, cultivate, and do other things. The school year was still very long. Wang Feng planned to help these guys find their first soul beast. When they returned to the academy, he would explain in detail what a soul contracted master was. After that, he would punch a card in the Sea God's pavilion and leave his life soul contract behind. After that, he would be able to officially leave. As for where he would go next, it would depend on the system's location. The next day, Zhou Yi, a man and a youth, found Wang Feng. "Senior, this is my lover, Fan Yu. He's also his disciple, He Kaitu." Zhou Yi introduced them. Fan Yu was a rather scholarly man. His soul power rank was very high, and he was an 8-ringed soul Douluo. His disciple, He Kaitu, had a rarely seen food-type martial soul. Wang Feng swept his gaze over them and thought to himself, twin martial souls? Another twin martial soul? Wang Feng was stunned. The Douluo continent had indeed changed after 10,000 years. He had already met a few twin martial souls. However, when he thought about the changes that the 5 energy tides had brought to humans, Wang Feng wasn't too surprised. He Kaitu looked to be 2 or 3 years older than Huoyu Hao. His body was more robust, and he was very tall and sturdy. His muscles were bulging, and he didn't look like a food-type soul master. Instead, he looked more like a battle soul master. "Hello, teacher." He Kaitu smiled foolishly. "Your soul tool department is also so interested in soul contracted masters?" Wang Feng smiled. "Don't tell me you want to place those soul tools on soul beasts? Do you want to increase their fighting strength? Can you also reduce the danger that those soul tools bring?" Fan Yu was stunned when he heard this. "Your knowledge is extraordinary." Fan Yu was silent for a moment, and a smile appeared on his face. "I didn't expect you to see through my intentions so quickly." "That's right, that's what I was thinking. After I found out about your battle with soul-contracted masters, I decided to fight them. I think this is an excellent way to fight them. Any soul tool will put a huge burden on the body of a soul master. Furthermore, the soul engineer will be in a weakened state after using it. If we can have a soul beast as a companion, it will greatly increase our survivability. At the same time, the strong physique of soul beasts will allow them to withstand soul tools that far exceed what a soul master can withstand. We don't need to withstand them. We just need to control them." It had to be said that Fan Yu's words were enough to prove that he was an outstanding soul engineer. He was forward-looking. The fact that he could think of combining the two proved that he had foresight. This was also the reason why Wang Feng agreed. In the future, soul tools were an obstacle that couldn't be avoided. It was very normal. As humans developed, soul tool technology would become even more advanced. When the time came, soul-contracted masters wouldn't be able to avoid soul tool technology. The only way was to find a way to combine them. Therefore, Wang Feng agreed to Zhou Yi's request. This was because his goal was similar to Fan Yu's, but he was looking further than Fan Yu. Fan Yu only saw the effects of soul-contracted masters and soul tools when combined. Wang Feng was thinking about the combination of soul-contracted masters and soul tool technology when soul tool technology was popular in the future. "Oh yes, since you're here, let me see," Wang Feng suddenly said. "Let me see how strong these soul tools that you've researched are." Fan Yu was stunned when he heard this, but he didn't refuse. "Kaitu, let me see." Fan Yu wanted He Kaitu to demonstrate first. He Kaitu nodded. At this moment, a clear voice suddenly sounded. "Why don't you let me try it for you? P.S. There will be 7 to 8 updates tomorrow." Chapter 11-18. Why don't I try it for you? It was a girl's voice. The few of them turned around and saw a woman who looked like a ball of flames walking over with a faint smile on her face. Xiaotao. Fan Yu was stunned as he looked at the girl. "Why are you here?" Ma Xiaotao was a famous genius in the academy. Although she wasn't from the Soul Tool department, they naturally knew about her. "Teacher Fan Yu." Ma Xiaotao walked over and glanced at the two of them. "He Kaitu, why don't you let your senior sister see your Soul Tool equipment?" He Kaitu glanced at Ma Xiaotao and laughed embarrassedly. She was the tyrant of the martial soul department. Only Zhang Lishuan could suppress her in the inner courtyard. No one else, male or female, could beat her. Due to her martial soul, she had a fiery temper. Of course, according to her, she was a gentle girl. She couldn't help but have a fiery temper. "Xiaotao, why are you blindly interfering?" Fan Yu couldn't help but ask. "Is this senior the one who wants to see a soul tool? What does it have to do with you? Why did this energetic guy come here?" Fan Yu and Zhou Yi were speechless. "Teacher Fan Yu, he's younger than you. How can you call him senior?" Ma Xiaotao didn't look at Wang Feng. Instead, she giggled as she asked this question. "Those who specialize in their own field are seniors." Fan Yu glared at Ma Xiaotao. Being a soul charmer is a new and rare profession with enormous potential. It's natural for someone who can create such a cultivation method to be called a senior. You, on the other hand, shouldn't blindly interfere. Hurry up and go back. Ma Xiaotao listened as she walked in front of the three of them. However, she didn't go back. Instead, she suddenly looked at Wang Feng and said, "I'll repay him for his kindness. He only saved me once, and I, Ma Xiaotao, have nothing to repay him with. I can only help him try it out. After all, this soul tool is extremely dangerous. I've seen it before, and it can't hurt me." When Fan Yu heard this, he thought that this girl wanted to repay him with her body. He was so shocked that he broke out in a cold sweat. However, he understood the cause and effect. He saved Ma Xiaotao? According to what he knew, although Ma Xiaotao was exceptionally talented, her body was corroded by the evil fire. She would often lose consciousness and attack anyone. Although they had been suppressed by the teachers of the inner yard over the past few years, they had often injured others. Otherwise, Ma Xiaotao's name wouldn't be so resounding in the inner court. To be able to save her, this meant that the other party had some kind of miraculous technique. Wang Feng was not surprised. He just didn't expect that the other party would come now. "Your name is Wang Feng, right? Then I'll call you Senior Wang." Ma Xiaotao's beautiful eyes turned and landed on Wang Feng. "Senior, what do you think? You've helped me a lot, so you should at least let me repay you a little, right?" She looked at Wang Feng, her heart thumping. Elder Lin didn't lie to her. This man was too handsome. Ma Xiaotao thought to herself. If you want to return it, then return it, Wang Feng said. I can see more clearly as a bystander. Hearing this, Ma Xiaotao was overjoyed, but she maintained her composure and walked to the side, smiling faintly. He Kaitu, use your strongest soul tool and give it a try. Speaking of which, it's been a long time since I've dismantled the soul tool department's messy steel with my bare hands. My hands are still itchy. As Ma Xiaotao spoke, she crossed her hands and clenched them, causing a series of crackling sounds to ring out. Originally, she wanted to turn her head and display her fighting spirit like she usually did. However, she seemed to have thought of something and hurriedly let go of her hands, calmly looking at Hikaitu. Senior sister, you're too violent. Hikaitu laughed bitterly. Violent? Ma Xiaotao raised her pale red eyebrows. Hikaitu, don't slander me. Your sister Xiaotao is very gentle. If you spout any more nonsense, I'll tear all of your soul tools to pieces. Hikaitu. Big sister, who in the academy doesn't know about your violence? Hikaitu ridiculed her inwardly. Fan Yu and Zhou Yi seemed to have understood something. Didn't you say that this senior has a wife? Fan Yu lowered his voice. Why does it seem like Xiaotao wants to chase after him? He did. He even said that he has several different temperaments, but it seems like a lot of people don't believe him. Zhou Yi thought for a moment. They think that no one is worthy of him. However, this senior doesn't seem like a playboy. He's been in the academy for a few months, but I haven't seen him seduce any female students. Instead, he's been quietly cultivating here. Perhaps it's because of this that he's even more attractive. Fan Yu shook his head. Just like when I was young, eh? Zhou Yi looked at him. Cough cough, no, nothing. Wang Feng had been paying attention to the battlefield. Huoyu Hao himself was rather interested in soul tools. In fact, no matter what world one was in, one couldn't avoid coming into contact with all kinds of technology. For example, in the Douluo world, the titled Douluo world was the limit. Since people couldn't break through this limit, they could only seek another path to become stronger. Therefore, the prevalence of soul tools and soul engineers was inevitable. Even if the Sun-Moon Empire hadn't clashed with the Federation, the Sun-Moon Empire wouldn't have existed. At most, the Federation would have developed soul tools in a few years. Another reason was that the emergence of this kind of technology would promote the advancement of society. Therefore, this was an inevitable development in a normal society. The Federation had already stepped over the feudal era of empires. Therefore, it had begun to develop soul tools in the face of the current Sun-Moon Empire. With the prevalence of soul tools, Wang Feng knew that soul beasts would face true extinction and slaughter in the future if soul charters didn't spread the word. Wang Feng was naturally a little interested in the current soul tools. This was because this was just an experiment. Ma Xiaotao was only the one being attacked. Hikaitu was the one attacking. In Wang Feng's eyes, the first to move was naturally Hikaitu. He had many pocket-like soul tools tied to his waist. With a light tap, countless soul tools flew out of his pocket. There were crisp mechanical sounds as pieces of strange soul tools flew from his arms to his shoulders, and then to his entire body. These soul tools didn't look very exquisite. Wang Feng could even clearly sense the simple internal structure of these soul tools with his spiritual senses. What was special was that these soul tools had special soul power undulations flowing within them. Every single piece of soul tool wasn't very beautiful when they were assembled. In his impression, they looked like the original Iron Man, which was covered in pure metal. However, there was only a simple mechanical structure inside. Senior Sister Xiaotao, be careful, Hikaitu shouted. 3 soul rings flickered on his body, and a smoke-like martial soul that was more than 10 centimeters long appeared in his hand. This martial soul is quite interesting. Wang Feng was astonished. 10,000 years later, in the Douluo continent, cigarettes were naturally developed. As a homebody who didn't smoke or drink in his previous life, he didn't have much interest in cigarettes. Chapter 11:19. After this cigarette appeared, Wang Feng could clearly feel soul power surging from Hikate's body into the metal-like soul tools on his body. Following this, Wang Feng's eyes flashed. He seemed to see the soul power circuits in the soul tools passing through the formation arrays of the soul tools. Hikate's immense soul power flowed back. After passing through the formation arrays, it seemed to be highly compressed. Finally, it gathered into a few small holes in the soul tools on his arm. Holes suddenly appeared on the back of Hikate's hand. Pitch-black rays of light shot out from these small holes towards Ma Xiaotao. So this is a soul tool. It's similar to the pistols and bombs in my previous life. Wang Fengxin thought to himself. They were both highly compressed energy and high-speed explosions. However, these were soul tools, and their methods were quite different. The strength was determined by the strength of one's soul power. However, it was undeniable that this was a way to maximize the use of one's soul power. Wang Feng muttered to himself. Soul skills were actually similar to soul tools in terms of attacking. Soul power flowed through the body in a special way before it was released. However, this was related to the soul master's physique. Soul tools were equivalent to replacing the soul master's body and using soul power. Even auxiliary type and healing type soul masters with weaker physiques could use soul tools to unleash great strength. This created a possibility for battle. Ma Xiaotao snorted as she saw the black lights coming towards her. She unleashed her fire phoenix martial soul, and a flaming barrier covered her body. Following this, she punched out. However, the purple flames were formed purely from soul power. Soul emperors naturally weren't afraid of Hikate's attack. As if she wanted to show off, Ma Xiaotao suddenly leaped high into the air. A pair of purple flame wings sprouted from her back, making her look majestic. Her enchanting and graceful figure was exceptionally attractive amidst the dancing flames. Rumble! The purple flames hit several pitch-black rays of light, causing a violent explosion. Amidst this explosion, countless shockwaves were swept up. Ma Xiaotao's clothes fluttered in the air. Her fire-colored hair swayed in the wind, and she looked very charming. Not bad. You've improved. After the explosion, Ma Xiaotao landed on the ground with a faint smile on her face. Hikaitu, the power of your moves is comparable to that of a rank 40 soul master. Hikaitu looked at his smoking arm and revealed a silly smile. Sister Xiaotao, this is just the beginning. As soon as he finished speaking, his body trembled. All of a sudden, the black metallic skin on his body began to wriggle. Tiny metal pipes suddenly appeared on his shoulders, back and hands. It looked like a gun muzzle. Come! Ma Xiaotao waved her hand at Hikaitu. I'll use my rank 40 soul power to test your soul tools. Don't hold back, attack with all you've got. Sister Xiaotao, you said it yourself. Hikaitu placed the cigarette in his mouth. After that, Hikate's body shook once more, and countless metal pipes emerged from his body. Wang Feng scanned the area. There were at least 100 of them. Open fire! Hikaitu shouted. His soul power surged into his soul tool. Instantly, the metal pipes lit up one after another, as if they wanted to split his body apart. Countless rays of light shot out from the metal pipe. They were like lasers as they blasted towards Ma Xiaotao. What strong power! Wang Fengxin said. These soul tools were indeed strong. They were like an ordinary person who had obtained a gun. The intensity of the battle had increased by several times. Hikaitu had used up all of his soul power. The power that was unleashed was simply terrifying. In just an instant, Ma Xiaotao was enveloped by the boundless light. Rumbling sounds that shook the ground continuously rang out. Will that child be all right? Zhou frowned as she watched. Even a rank 40 soul master would find it difficult to withstand such soul power undulations. Don't worry, Xiaotao is a soul emperor. She won't be hurt so easily. Fan Yu said calmly. Even 3 Hikaitu won't be able to hurt her. Unless she's stupid enough to only use rank 40 soul power. Zhou Yi nodded. However, just as Fan Yu finished speaking in an instant, a figure was suddenly blasted out from the ceaseless explosions of flames. Fan Yu was stunned when he saw this. This girl, she can't really only use rank 40 soul power, right? Ma Xiaotao was like a meteorite as she flew towards Wang Feng in the distance. Wang Feng frowned slightly. He raised his hand slightly and waved it. His soul force flowed out and formed a gentle hurricane that caught Ma Xiaotao as she flew backward. Ma Xiaotao seemed to have collided with a gentle wall of wind. She used it to spin 710 degrees in the air before landing on the ground. She was less than a meter away from Wang Feng. As if she was afraid of being seen through, Ma Xiaotao shouted the moment she landed on the ground. Hikaitu, you really didn't hold back at all. However, your sister Xiaotao kept her word and only used rank 40 soul power. Not bad, you've improved a lot. After she finished speaking, Ma Xiaotao exhaled a long breath. Wang Feng seemed to understand something. He couldn't help but ask, "How are you?" "Hey, I'm fine." When Ma Xiaotao heard his voice, she immediately smiled confidently and replied, "He's a rank 30 soul elder. What harm can he do to me? Just now I was sent flying by the impact of the energy explosion." Wang Feng nodded. "You weren't just fine, you were forcefully flying towards me." Ma Xiaotao felt that her explanation was a little redundant and suspicious. She couldn't help but blush slightly, and didn't look at Wang Feng. Wang Feng didn't say anything. Instead, he looked towards Hikaitu. At this moment, Hikaita's entire body was emitting a faint layer of smoke, as if he'd been overloaded. His face was also slightly pale. It was obvious that he'd consumed quite a bit of energy. "Senior, look. Hikaita's body is at its weakest right now." Fan Yu hurriedly walked over and poured his gentle soul power into Hikaita's body, causing him to slowly recover. Unleashing such a powerful attack is even more taxing on a soul master's body than on his soul power. In reality, soul tools were also balanced. To be able to make a food-type soul master over rank 30 unleash the attack power of a rank 40 soul master, crossing so many ranks. This was something that soul skills alone couldn't achieve. This was also the strength of soul tools. However, the burden on one's body was extremely great. If it was a battle soul master with a beast martial soul, it would be slightly better. However, if it was an auxiliary-type soul master, the burden on one's body would be too great. This was also the difficulty of soul engineers. After Fan Yu learned about soul contract masters, he knew that if a soul contract master and a soul tool were combined, a soul beast's strong body would be able to unleash the power of a soul tool better. On the other hand, a soul master only needed to assist. Chapter 11:20. These soul tools are indeed quite powerful. Wang Feng nodded slightly. There are a few types of soul tools, Fan Yu said with a smile. Fan Yu smiled and said, the strongest stationary soul tool is even more powerful than the close combat or long-range soul tools attached to a person's body. Wang Feng was astonished. Really? I want to see it for myself. Fan Yu was stunned when he heard this. These stationary soul tools are very powerful. It's very easy to get hurt with Xiaotao's abilities. I'm afraid she'll be hurt. Ma Xiaotao raised her eyebrows. I'm not afraid. Let's try. Wang Feng waved his hand. There's no need. That kind of explosion can easily trigger the evil fire in your body. You shouldn't take too much. I'll try it myself. Ma Xiaotao opened her mouth, but didn't refute him. He must be worried about me, right? Ma Xiaotao was a little embarrassed, but she said seriously, Senior, you're underestimating me. Furthermore, I won't be hurt. This stationary soul tool is extremely powerful. I can still absorb the heat generated when it explodes. Teacher Fan Yu doesn't know my abilities. That's why he thinks I'll be hurt. In fact, I won't be hurt. You, on the other hand, have never touched a stationary soul tool before. You'll be hurt the first time. Therefore, let me do it. Fan Yu and Zhou Yi were speechless. If you could absorb it, why would you be thrown out? Fan Yu couldn't help but glare at Ma Xiaotao. Ma Xiaotao was speechless. She blushed and glared at Fan Yu, unwilling to be outdone. Zhou Yi tugged at Fan Yu's sleeve and whispered, seriously, why did you expose him so directly? Aren't you embarrassing her? What am I exposing? I'm just speaking the truth, Fan Yu was stunned. Are you saying that Xiaotao did it on purpose? This girl is a little proactive. Nonsense. After all, he saved her. How can she not be proactive? Zhou Yi was speechless. Clearly, she had already seen through the fact that Ma Xiaotao had been sent flying toward Wang Feng by the explosion. Clearly, she had done it on purpose. At this moment, Wang Feng was astonished. When did I say I was going to face it personally? The three of them were stunned when they heard this. Following this, a soul ring lit up on Wang Feng's body. Long Xie's enormous body emerged from the soul ring. Long Xie, test the strength of this stationary soul tool. Long Xie was speechless. Long Xie glared at Wang Feng. Teacher Fan Yu, please. Wang Feng pointed at Long Xie, who was like a small mountain. Just go all out and attack. His skin is thick, and he can take a beating. Fan Yu glanced at Wang Feng, and then at the stony dragon. He said, stationary soul tools are extremely accurate, and the inscriptions within them are very complex. They don't need to expend too much soul power when they're fired, but they do require a lot of spiritual power to control their accuracy. Otherwise, it's easy to deviate. While its power is high, its weakness is also very obvious. Its accuracy is not enough. It's fine, said Wang Feng. With my physique, you can't even think about it. Fan Yu glanced at Long Xie, coughed a few times, and nodded. The crag dragon was a defense-oriented soul beast, and stationary soul tools were also graded according to their strength. Fan Yu wouldn't use a Class 6 or Class 7 stationary soul tool to test it out. Those types of soul tools were too expensive, and he wouldn't use them unless there were special circumstances. Don't look at me with such a bitter expression. Wang Feng patted Long Xie's butt. You're only one step away from becoming a 10,000-year soul beast. You need some strong external force to stimulate your body's potential. I can't be bothered to beat you up. This stationary soul tool's strength will cover your entire body. When that happens, you'll have to endure it, and your potential will be stimulated. You'll be able to become a 10,000-year soul beast even faster. Long Xie nodded and looked at Fan Yu. At this moment, Fan Yu took out a bunch of components from his storage-type soul tool and quickly assembled them on the ground. Stationary soul tools were similar to stationary missiles and cannons. A soul master didn't need to use his soul power to condense them. He only needed to load a specially made cannon, and the soul master could use his soul power to ignite them. Therefore, he needed some time to assemble them. Is this your soul-bound beast? It was Ma Xiaotao's first time seeing Long Xie. She was very curious. Long Xie. That's his name, Wang Feng answered. And #hashtag at hashtag, and Ma Xiaotao blinked her beautiful eyes as she spoke to Long Xie in a friendly manner. ? Wang Feng looked at her in surprise. What are you talking about? The language of beast. Ma Xiaotao was confused. I've heard the masters of languages in the Federation say that soul beasts have their own unique language, and they have their own way of communicating. After so many years of research, I can roughly understand the basic language. I was just saying hello to you. Otherwise, soul beasts and humans can only communicate through spiritual voice transmissions. Only soul beasts that are close to 100,000 years can speak human language. Wang Feng was speechless. Ma Xiaotao still knew too little about soul charters. I'm not good. Long Xie turned his head and spoke human language. I'm about to be beaten up. Little girl, do you think I'm good? Ma Xiaotao was shocked. He can speak human language? Why is he so intelligent? Didn't Zhang Lishuan tell the inner courtyard students? Wang Feng shook his head. My soulbound beast is a little intelligent. However, speaking human language is only a basic skill. As for the language of beasts, Long Xie, do you soul beasts have a language of beasts? Nonsense. Soul beasts are very complex and their structures are very strange. How can we have a language? Long Xie said disdainfully. Even if we do, every race has their own way of communicating. Who knows what you were screaming about just now, little girl? Ma Xiaotao's face turned red. That was too embarrassing. That might not be the case. Wang Feng said, language is a huge subject. What Ma Xiaotao said just now might be the language of a certain race of soul beasts. You just don't know it. I'm sorry, but Long Xie is no longer a soul beast. Long Xie curled his lips in disdain. It's fine, it's fine. Ma Xiaotao smiled. She didn't feel embarrassed. Fan Yu spoke up at this time. It's ready. This is a Class 3 stationary explosive bullet. The explosion will cover a radius of 20 meters, and it has a burning effect. Can you withstand it? Long Xie opened his mouth, but before he could say anything, Wang Feng said, no problem. Give me a few more. Long Xie was speechless. Fan Yu was speechless. Fan Yu did not hesitate in the slightest. The instant Wang Feng landed, Fan Yu rushed forward. When Wang Feng landed on the ground, he looked at the stationary soul tool on the ground. In Wang Feng's eyes, this stationary soul tool looked like a missile launcher. There were many metal brackets on the ground, and there was a special chip in the base. The barrel was connected to many metal pipes that were used to drive soul power. Chapter 11:21. The cannon's muzzle was black, and it was less than a meter long. It looked like a large missile launcher. It looked very old. It was still quite different from the missile launchers that Wang Feng had in his previous life. Following this, Fan Yu took out a round, blackish-red cannon shell that was about the size of a palm. There were special patterns flowing on it. He could sense that the interior of the cannonball was made of a lot of special metals and materials, and it was sealed by a special magic formation inside. It was probably very expensive to make. In the next moment, Fan Yu placed the explosive bomb into his stationary soul tool with great familiarity. As Fan Yu injected his soul power into the cannon, it shone brightly. Several cannon shells were fired from the cannon's muzzle. A circle of dust was blown into the air. Roar! Long Xie let out a ferocious roar. His skin turned bright silver, and his defensive strength increased rapidly. He could sense how strong the attack was in that ball of scorching light. When the cannon shell landed on Long Xie's body, his entire body started to explode. Countless flames covered his bright silver armor. However, it didn't affect him at all. His skin wasn't damaged at all. Fan Yu was stunned. This stony dragon's defenses were too strong. It was important to know that even rank 50 or 60 soul masters wouldn't dare to take a Class 4 stationary cannon shell head-on. It was impossible for an ordinary crag dragon to have such a strong defense. Even a 10,000-year-old crag dragon would be severely injured at the very least. Fan Yu didn't hesitate. Following this, he fired several more stationary cannon shells. The violent explosions landed on different parts of Long Xie's body due to their different aim. They were like missiles that landed on a mountain. Along with the shaking of the ground began to sway. Fortunately, this plaza was big enough. Otherwise, Wang Feng's residence would have been razed to the ground. Wang Feng's eyes sparkled. He could sense that this stationary soul tool was extraordinary. Long Xie's soul force had been used to create a suit of armor, but it was quickly being blasted into pieces. Boss, this thing is a little strong. Long Xie couldn't help but say, do you want to help me block it? Wasn't it said that soul contractors had to go through thick and thin with other soul contractors and develop a tacit understanding between them? Hurry up, boss, this is the best time to train with me. Come and help me block it. Otherwise, if this goes on, I will definitely be blown apart by these explosions. Get lost. Wang Feng laughed and scolded. Can't you comprehend it yourself? Let's see if I can resist these stationary soul tools with my special soul skills. You're a soul-bonded beast now, not a soul beast. There's no need to wait for a soul skill to appear automatically after 10,000 years. You can comprehend it yourself. Your previous soul skills and abilities can be changed and used. With your intelligence, it won't be difficult. Long Xie fell silent upon hearing this. Amidst the countless explosions, the skin that had been blasted open by the high explosive shells began to turn red as it was destroyed. Immediately afterward, special scales began to grow out of his skin and flesh, covering Long Xie's body. The scorching energy and terrifying impact of the explosion were quickly absorbed by these scales. Seeing this, Wang Feng nodded. Although the crag dragon was an ordinary soul beast, Long Xie had cultivated it step by step. In addition, he had fed the rocks of the Rainbow Mountain with his blood. Naturally, his body had undergone the necessary changes. Just as he had said, the crag dragon had the dragon god's bloodline, although it was very faint. However, there was a chance that it could be activated. Apart from relying on Wang Feng's essence blood, Long Xie also had to rely on his own comprehension. If he could really activate the dragon god's bloodline, his body and Wang Feng's nurturing would allow him to rival the dragon god in the future. This crag dragon has grown special scales. They seem to be absorbing the energy from the explosions. Fan Yu was shocked. He seemed to have realized something. What ability is that? Does the crag dragon have such an ability? Obviously, it doesn't. Fan Yu took a deep breath. Is this crag dragon trying to comprehend some soul skill on its own? As he thought until here, Fan Yu calmed down and took out a few more high explosive shells. These shells were very expensive. Each one cost more than 100 gold soul coins. However, I'll treat it as Hikadu's tuition fee. Fan Yu could tell that Long Xie wanted to use his soul-carving beast to withstand the stationary soul tools. Besides wanting to experience them, he also wanted to use this opportunity to train his soul-carving beast. This was because the attacks of stationary soul tools covered a large area. They could cover the opponent's entire body. It could really be used to train his soul-carving beast. Long Xie's scales shone brighter. They were dark yellow and carried a unique aura. Wang Feng could sense that they were the aura of the purest Dragon Ball bloodline. These scales were a sign of mutation. They could also be a sign that his bloodline had been activated. The crag dragon from before didn't have any scales. It was just a rustic dragon. It couldn't even be considered a pseudo-dragon. If this continues, your soul-carving beast will be fine, right? Ma Xiaotao felt the increasingly terrifying explosions. She was a little worried. It was too exaggerated. It's fine. Wang Feng squinted his eyes. The stronger Long Xie became, the more beneficial it would be to him. This kind of omnidirectional explosion was the best training for Long Xie, who was currently extremely large. At this moment, perhaps because of their accuracy, Long Xie fired more than 10 of them. 3 of them were slightly off target. They went straight for Ma Xiaotao and Wang Feng. Be careful. On the other side, Zhou Yi was so shocked that she broke out in a cold sweat. Even if Fan Yu was the one using the stationary soul tool, he still couldn't control it well. Long Xie was too big. Even if the shots were off target, they still hit him. However, there were still a few of them, Phoenix Possession. Ma Xiaotao didn't even think when she saw the 3 bombs. She immediately used Martial Soul Possession. She wanted to forcefully receive the 3 bombs. It didn't matter even if she was injured. However, the troublesome thing was that when the 3 bombs fell from the sky, they accidentally collided with each other. 2 of them immediately exploded, and then the third bomb was instantly detonated. In the blink of an eye, a scorching and explosive force that could shatter everything swept over. The flames were secondary. Even Ma Xiaotao couldn't take the impact of such an explosion. At this moment, an ancient syllable sounded from Wang Feng's mouth. Defend. The mysterious syllable resonated in the sky. A streak of spiritual power condensed and fused into this ancient and holy syllable. In an instant, the explosive force mixed with the scorching flames seemed to be wrapped by an invisible force. Chapter 11:22. Before it hit Ma Xiaotao, it seemed to freeze. Immediately after, the huge impact of the scorching flames instantly solidified and vanished into thin air. It was the imperial sound of the chaotic 8 notes. After Wang Feng perfected it, this mysterious ancient sound could defend against any attack that couldn't be defended against. It could break any technique that couldn't be broken, and it could resist any force that couldn't be resisted. It represented supreme defense. Defense and imperial. They were one. Everyone present was stunned when they saw this scene. The explosion on Long Xie's body also calmed down after Fan Yu stopped attacking. Ma Xiaotao's face was a little pale. The terrifying force of the flames was very close to her. She could even feel the terrifying explosive force contained within it. She wasn't good at defense. If she took this attack head-on, she would definitely be severely injured. However, she didn't expect the terrifying explosive force from the fusion of the 3 bombs to vanish under this mysterious ancient sound. Are you all right? Wang Feng's voice came from behind. Ma Xiaotao turned around and looked at him. He seemed to be the one who released that mysterious ancient sound. Is that a type of spiritual power? It's unbelievable. How did he do it? Zhou Yi felt like she had heard a similar ancient sound before. She suddenly recalled that her opponent had used a similar ancient sound in the soul dueling arena. However, the entire arena quietened down then, and her mind became clear. It was very strange. I'm fine. Ma Xiaotao's eyes sparkled. The chaotic 8 notes were very strong. Although Wang Feng had only just perfected it, it was also because of his ambition. He wanted to perfect the chaotic 8 notes to the point where it could rival the heaven-shrouding 9 secret. Although there was still a long way to go, it was still very strong. However, it was already beginning to take shape with small success. With the imperial sound, all attacks would be turned into nothing. At least, it could be countered by any attack below the level of a soul Douluo. It could even change the direction of the attack. Wang Feng's initial comprehension of inverse the universe was based on the U-word sound, the U-word. It was also mixed with his understanding of the power of laws. Against such a large-scale attack, the imperial sound was even more shocking. It's good that you're fine. Wang Feng nodded slightly. Elder, did you use a soul skill just now? Ma Xiaotao couldn't help but ask curiously. I guess so. It's a spiritual type soul skill. I created it myself. Wang Feng said bluntly. The chaotic 8 notes weren't a soul skill. It's just that he's talking about soul skills, that's all. A spiritual type soul skill? Ma Xiaotao exclaimed. Isn't your martial soul an ice attribute martial soul? How did it become a spiritual type martial soul? Who said that only spiritual type martial souls can have spiritual type soul skills? Wang Feng laughed. Everyone has spiritual power. If they think they can do it, they can create their own spiritual type soul skills. Ma Xiaotao was stunned. She understood every word of Wang Feng's words. But after listening to him, he was a little confused. Soul power is in our bodies. Wang Feng continued, we can create our own soul skills. Spiritual power is also in our brains, so we can naturally create soul skills. It's just that spiritual power involves the brain. The slightest bit of carelessness could cause damage to the brain, so most people wouldn't try it. But that doesn't mean there aren't any. Ma Xiaotao was enlightened. She did understand. Senior is wise. At this moment, Fan Yu suddenly walked over from afar and said with a serious face, "It's indeed so. Spiritual power is too complicated. Soul masters have developed for so many years, but spiritual-type martial souls are few and far between. The research on spiritual power is also very limited. It's because it's too dangerous to research." Wang Fengxin said, "Wasn't the research on the brain the same in my previous life? It's because it's too mysterious and unpredictable. So it's even more dangerous to research it. The technology in my previous life was so advanced, but the research on the human brain didn't progress much. Not to mention this fantasy world where soul masters were the main focus, as well as the special concept of spiritual power. It's estimated that in a few thousand years, humans might be able to achieve great results in research on spiritual power. However, Senior's spiritual-type soul skill is truly extraordinary." Fan Yu was shocked. Using spiritual power to easily block an energy attack, this is truly an incomparably profound method. Of course it was profound. Wang Feng's spiritual power was only one part of this seemingly simple syllable. It also contained part of his comprehension of laws and his own comprehension. It formed a formless ancient sound that could affect the laws of space and break all kinds of attacks at the same time. How could they possibly understand it? The accuracy of your stationary soul tools is so low because your use of spiritual power is too low. Wang Feng shook his head and said, "My disciple Huiyuhao's spiritual power detection soul skill is actually a type of high use of spiritual power. However, that's because of his soul skill and martial soul. It's a bit more powerful. In fact, high-ranking soul masters can also use spiritual power detection to achieve this. 10,000 years ago, titled Douluo experts could use spiritual power to detect the situation in their surroundings. They could achieve an effect similar to spiritual detection. Huiyuhao's spiritual detection was strong because he was only a rank 10 soul master, but he had the spiritual power detection ability that only high-ranking soul masters had. In fact, with Fan Yu's strength, he could also achieve this by using more spiritual power and increasing the accuracy of his stationary soul tools. Unfortunately, soul masters still only focused on soul power, martial souls, and soul skills. The development of spiritual power was really limited. For example, many cultivation methods related to soul power had been created over the years. However, there weren't any spiritual power cultivation technique. Only the purple demon eyes, which Little Three had left behind, could be considered a mental power cultivation method. Fan Yu and Zhou Yi looked at each other and laughed bitterly. This senior was asking them to create special spiritual soul skills. But how could it be so easy? If something happened to their spiritual power, it would be more troublesome than soul power backlash. They might even become idiots. I've learned something. Fan Yu bowed slightly. Ask Kaitu to make some preparations. Gather at my place in 4 days. I'll bring them out to search for soul beasts. Wang Feng said. Fan Yu nodded and looked at Long Xie. Is he all right? Long Xie was still comprehending with his eyes closed. However, more and more dark yellow scales were growing on his body. He's fine. Wang Feng revealed a smile on his face. It wasn't just fine. Long Xie had benefited immensely from Fan Yu's stationary soul tool. That's good. Fan Yu heaved a sigh of relief. Xiaotao, are you all right? I made a mistake just now. I'm sorry. It's fine, it's fine. Ma Xiaotao giggled. She thought to herself, fortunately, you made a mistake. It was quite crucial. Then we'll take our leave. Fan Yu and Zhou Yi said. Wang Feng nodded slightly. The three of them left. Chapter 11:23. Kaitu, what do you think about soul charters? Fan Yu asked as they walked. Very strong, very powerful. Kaitu thought for a moment. That crag dragon was much stronger than normal crag dragons. I think this might have something to do with the nurturing of soul charters. Once one becomes a soul charter and has a soul beast as a companion, it'll be of great help. That's right. Fan Yu nodded slightly. You have to learn from this senior. This senior probably won't stay in the academy for long. What a pity. Oh right, Fan Yu. At this moment, Zhou Yi suddenly spoke in a low voice. Were the last 3 high-explosive bombs intentional? Fan Yu was speechless. Fan Yu looked at Zhou Yi. How could it be intentional? That thing is so dangerous. How could he use such a method to create an opportunity for Xiao Tao? If something happens, I won't be able to bear the responsibility. That's strange. With your strength, you should have touched a stationary soul tool countless times. How could you make such a mistake? It's purely because I fired too many bombs. I don't believe it. When he said that, he implied that you, as a soul Douluo, would make a mistake and not use your spiritual power properly. I think he could tell that you did it intentionally. Wang Feng didn't really care if Fan Yu did it intentionally or not. Fan Yu might have wanted to test his strength and see if he could protect his students. Or he might have done it unintentionally. But no matter what, Wang Feng didn't think that Fan Yu might have been trying to create an opportunity for Ma Xiaotao. Only Ma Xiaotao would think this way. She felt that Fan Yu had done it on purpose. He'd done it on purpose so that the two of them could resolve this crisis and improve their relationship. Ma Xiaotao felt that her relationship with this mysterious Wang Feng had improved. This man was truly mysterious. Not only was he a soul charter, but he was also extremely strong. He could even create his own spiritual type soul skill. He was also so handsome, and possessed an ice-type martial soul. Ma Xiaotao felt that the heavens might have sent him to her, otherwise, how could there be such a perfect man in this world? However, he didn't seem to feel that he'd improved their relationship. Miss Xiaotao, is there anything else? Wang Feng said bluntly. That day I unintentionally saved you, and today you helped me. It should be enough to offset it, right? Ma Xiaotao was stunned. She thought for a moment and said, But you saved me again just now. Wang Feng. So, Ma Xiaotao suddenly said, in order to repay you, how about I become your student? I also want to become a soul renderer. Wang Feng. You call this repaying me? Wang Feng couldn't help but say, that's not right. If you become my student, you'll be taking advantage of me. How are you repaying me? Hearing this, Ma Xiaotao blushed and said confidently, Can't I be your experiment? If I become your student, I won't refuse any experiments you want to do on me. I'm also a soul emperor, so I'm not as weak as those rank 10 or 20 kids. A soul emperor's test subject. Towards the end, Ma Xiaotao blinked her eyes, her tone a little soft. It was as if the white bone demon was seducing Tang Sanzang. That makes sense. Wang Feng nodded. Then, he glanced at Long Xie. Long Xie's scales were still growing. However, his body was simply too big. It would take at least 10 days to completely cover his body with those dark yellow scales. Thinking of this, Wang Fengxin had an idea. How about this? Do me a favor. Wang Feng said, Do me a favor and I'll accept you as my student. Ma Xiaotao's eyes lit up. This was one of her goals. No problem. What favor? Tell me. I'll definitely not refuse. Ma Xiaotao said solemnly. How about this? For the next 4 days, you'll have to stay with me. Wang Feng looked at Ma Xiaotao. Ma Xiaotao heard this. Ma Xiaotao was stunned on the spot. Then, her face turned red. Even her snow-white neck was dyed with a layer of rouge. Her eyes were full of shame. Was he trying to invite me to his wedding? But, isn't this too fast? Ma Xiaotao's heart was beating wildly. Although she had a good impression of him, Ma Xiaotao looked at Wang Feng and found that she couldn't refuse. Isn't this too fast? Ma Xiaotao stammered, at least, after some time together. Together? Wang Feng shook his head. I don't have time. I'm in a hurry. So, do you agree or not? If you don't, I'll do it myself. It'll be more troublesome. Do it yourself. Ma Xiaotao was so embarrassed that she didn't know what to say. She glanced at Wang Feng's hands. He didn't look like someone who was in such a hurry. The impact of this sudden request made Ma Xiaotao temporarily lose her ability to think. In other words, her IQ was lowered. Well, it's not good to do it too much by myself. Ma Xiaotao's body was emitting heat. She lowered her head and said softly, I'll agree. Just treat it as repayment for saving me. All right. Wang Feng nodded. But you have to be prepared. These few days might be a little tiring. Ma Xiaotao's body trembled. Her skin flushed red. She looked at Wang Feng angrily. How could he say something like that? You! Ma Xiaotao looked at Wang Feng. She didn't know what to say. In the end, she said in a shy and angry voice, All right. All right, then let's get started. Wang Feng smiled and pointed at Long Xie. Ma Xiaotao felt a little dizzy in that instant. Get started? Just like that? Ma Xiaotao looked at Wang Feng dizzily. Wasn't he in too much of a hurry? Did he have to be in such a hurry? Well, at least wait until it's dark, right? Am I Ma Xiaotiao, that kind of girl? Ma Xiaotao was so embarrassed that she almost left. However, after thinking about it, she sensed the faint, attractive aura coming from him. She also sensed the evil fire in her martial soul. Her body trembled. She whispered, Then, let's go back to the house. Why should we go back to the house? Let's do it here. Wang Feng looked at Ma Xiaotao. You! Ma Xiaotao almost fainted. Here? Oh my God! Ma Xiaotao looked around. There was no one around. There were only a few trees in the distance. This place was quite secluded. However, all right. Ma Xiaotao gritted her teeth. She told herself that she had to repay Wang Feng's kindness. She slowly unbuttoned her outer clothes. However, at this moment Wang Feng said in surprise, Why are you taking off your clothes all of a sudden? I told you to attack Long Xie. Will your strength increase if you take off your clothes? Ma Xiaotao was stunned when she heard this. Her half-unbuttoned outer clothes froze in the air. Author's note, cough cough. Chapter 11:24. Ma Xiaotao froze on the spot. Her mind went blank. He didn't mean it that way? Oh my God! What was I thinking? Ma Xiaotao, who had lost her mind, suddenly understood. It was all a misunderstanding. But this misunderstanding was too big. Ma Xiaotao wanted to crawl into a crack in the ground. This was too embarrassing. Don't tell me you're thinking of. At this time, Wang Feng suddenly looked at Ma Xiaotao and said in surprise, Could it be? Ma Xiaotao blushed again when she heard this. She quickly looked up and waved her hand. No, I'm taking off my clothes. It's just that. Ma Xiaotao was so anxious that she couldn't say anything. Is it because of the evil fire? Wang Feng asked. Or is it because of your martial soul that you're more powerful when you take off your clothes? Is it because you can release your soul power? Yes. Ma Xiaotao nodded. That's the reason. She heaved a sigh of relief. It seems like he didn't notice anything. That's great. Then you should go back and rest. Come back in the afternoon, Wang Feng said. Ma Xiaotao didn't dare to face the man in front of her. She quickly left with a red face. She ran to the side of the lake and jumped into it. He wanted to let the clear and cold lake water cool down his heated body, as well as the distracting thoughts from earlier. That was close. What was I doing? Ma Xiaotao covered her burning cheek. Why was I so slutty? I can't do that again. That's not right. When did I, Ma Xiaotao, become such a love-struck fool? Ma Xiaotao, you're so stupid. As she spoke, she slapped herself twice, as if to wake herself up. After thinking for a while, Ma Xiaotao couldn't help but say, I shouldn't blame him. You can't blame me for this. It's mainly because this man is too handsome. It's easy to lose your mind after looking at him for too long. Yes, it's definitely not my fault. To prevent this from happening again, I've decided to look at him more. That way, I'll be immune to it. I'm so smart. Boss, why are you so interested in teasing this little girl? Long Xie asked through voice transmission. Clearly, this pretentious dragon was an old dragon. Just in case something like this really happens in the future. If she can't help it, I'm sure she'll recall what happened today. Wang Feng said, after all, I'm so handsome that even a woman can't help it. Long Xie was speechless. Boss, have some shame. Trust me, you're not that handsome, Long Xie said with a smile. Wang Feng glared at Long Xie. Be a good boy and comprehend it. I'll have Ma Xiaotao attack you in the next few days to stimulate your potential. It will speed up the growth of your dragon scales. Although Wang Feng was just teasing Ma Xiaotao, his goal was to make Ma Xiaotao stay. He did want her to attack Long Xie. Long Xie was enlightened after being attacked by the stationary soul tools. His body had mutated to a certain extent, and his bloodline was showing signs of being activated. As long as he kept attacking, Long Xie would be able to reach 10,000 years in the next few days. However, it was clear that Fan Yu couldn't keep using his stationary soul tool to attack. Ma Xiaotao was a very good choice. Wang Feng knew about the evil Fire Phoenix's soul skills. Even though there were some changes, they were mostly the same. The flames covered Long Xie's body and stimulated the growth of his scales. Damn! Long Xie snorted. I say, boss, as far as I know, your wives have all become gods. You've recultivated this body. If they find out that you've hooked up with new girls, they'll be scared. Aren't you afraid? What's there to be afraid of? No, when did I hook up with new girls? Wang Feng thought for a moment. Are you blaming me for becoming more handsome? It's not your fault. I'm afraid that if they find out, they'll work together to scratch your face a few times. Let's see how you're going to attract girls then. Long Xie chuckled. They're all gods now. They can't beat my original body even if they work together. Wang Feng shook his head. Furthermore, the god realm has lost contact with the Douluo continent. They won't know what's happening on the Douluo continent. Boss, your words have exposed the dirty thoughts in your heart. Long Xie laughed. Is that what you're thinking? Is that why you want to hook up with these girls? Boss, you're an old cow eating young grass. Have some shame. Wang Feng shrugged. Let nature take its course. I've said everything I need to say. You're a single dragon. Don't think those girls are so simple. Times have changed. Everyone advocates monogamy. 10,000 years ago, it was still an empire. Those emperors and nobles had many women. That's why Zhu Qing and the others can accept Rongrong and the others. Now, the Federation is unified. Back then, Dong abolished the empire system after unifying the two empires. In the beginning, the Federation accepted monogamy because it wanted to continue rare martial souls. However, it was abolished later. Now, monogamy is the norm in the Federation. Those girls can't accept polygamy. That was indeed the rule in the Federation. Of course, many sects and families would match a pot of tea with several teacups for the continuation of their descendants or the inheritance of their martial souls. However, the mainstream view was monogamy. Long Xie chuckled. She's obviously targeting you. I suspect that your first wife guessed that you'd wake up in the future, so she purposely set this rule. That way, you won't have the chance to flirt with other girls. Wang Feng was taken aback. He thought to himself, what the boasting dragon said made some sense. He was very powerful now. He didn't have to worry about the system sending him out of this world. Forget it. I didn't want to flirt with her. Wang Feng sneered. If I wanted to, do you think I wouldn't have a chance? I think I've had enough. That's true. Although you're thick-skinned, it's true that you're very charming. Long Xie thought for a moment, then said, I think you should seal your looks in the future. Even if you don't provoke others, you'll still be able to attract them. Even if you don't flirt with other people, who knows how many girls will fall for you. TSK. You'll be in love debt by then. Wang Feng looked up at the sky. What Long Xie said made sense. However, bullshit, Wang Feng said disdainfully. Why should I seal my appearance just because I'm too handsome? If they fall for me because of my looks, I have to seal my appearance? I would have done that 10,000 years ago. But forget it now. I don't have that obligation. It's not my love debt. It's their love tribulation. If it's true, it's their fate. If they can overcome it, they might be able to reach a higher level. I'm helping them. Long Xie was speechless. End of chapter. Chapter 11:25. Boss, no one in this world is as shameless as you. Long Xie was speechless. But that's a bold statement. That's true. Boss, you're someone who can fight a godly king. Why do you care about that? The dragon god was a playboy, and he only left 9 descendants. Who knows how many cough. Boss, you don't even have 1,000th of the dragon god's descendants. Scram. I'm not a F** king dragon. Wang Feng snapped. Long Xie chuckled. Actually, when I was absorbing evil thoughts in the great star Do forest, I received confessions from many pure-blooded female dragons. However, I was focused on cultivating back then, and I wanted to overcome my heavenly tribulation. It's a pity. Even that bastard D. Tian has the infernal devil dragon clan as his vassal. I wonder how those female dragons have been over the past 10,000 years. Long Xie heaved a long sigh. Come to think of it, I remember a voice communicating with me in the great star Do forest. I feel like she's also a descendant of the dragon god. Even though I've never seen her before. Wang Feng thought for a moment before continuing. She should be the silver dragon that the dragon gods split off from, right? She seems to be a female dragon. Long Xie's expression changed when he heard this. I can't afford to offend her. I'm only a strand of evil thought from the dragon god when he was young. However, she's one of the dragon god's 2 origins that perished when he was at his peak. Apart from the dragon god, she's the strongest. Then what are you afraid of? You won't be any weaker than the dragon god after being trained by your boss. Wang Feng chuckled. Speaking of which, you should be more senior than her, right? It's not the same. Long Xie laughed bitterly. When I was first born, I was just a strand of evil thought. After a long time, I slowly absorbed the evil thought and gained sentience. When I finally awakened, the dragon god had already perished. The silver dragon escaped from the god realm and went into hibernation in the great star Do forest. However, she sensed me back then. I was still very weak back then. Even though she was severely injured, she could still easily kill me. That's why I've always been a little afraid? I guess so. That's why I didn't say anything when she was talking to you. I'll leave it to you, boss. This silver dragon carries the will of the dragon god. It's not that simple. The conversation between the man and the dragon stopped there. Wang Feng shook his head inwardly. He didn't think that the fearless Long Xie would be afraid of something. Over the next few days, Ma Xiaotao followed the rules and went to Wang Feng's residence to attack Long Xie with wide-range attack. Long Xie's dragon scales were stimulated by Ma Xiaotao's attacks and grew faster. To Long Xie, it was indeed a bit bitter, but compared to his experience, he could only grumble a bit. In his heart, he was still willing. On the 4th night, finally, all of Long Xie's scales grew out. Even if a rock dragon was 10,000 years old, it was still a rock dragon without scales. As for 100,000 years, there was no rock dragon that had cultivated to 100,000 years for the time being, so there was no way to test it. Long Xie's current growth path had already exceeded the limits of his race. Night fell. Ma Xiaotao was sweating all over. She was panting as she lay on the ground. Because of her sweat, her clothes stuck tightly to her charming body. However, her eyes were glued to Long Xie, who wasn't far away. Wang Feng walked over and handed her a cup of ice water. "Thank you." Ma Xiaotao hurriedly stood up and took the cup of ice water. She drank it in one gulp and spat out a breath of cold air. "No need. This is what I'm supposed to do." After several hours of non-stop attacks, Ma Xiaotao's body was burning hot due to the use of her martial soul. Her body would emit flames from time to time. After drinking this cup of ice water, he instantly felt extremely comfortable. The rich heaven-earth yuan qi from the ice water entered his 5 viscera and 6 bowels. "Go rest in the room for the night." Wang Feng pointed. "I'll take you to find a soul-bonding beast tomorrow." "Ah, okay." Ma Xiaotao looked around the room. She hadn't fought in the past few days, but she had been using all her strength to attack Long Xie. For some reason, Ma Xiaotao didn't feel tired even though she was using up a lot of soul power. Instead, he was filled with energy and was full of vigor every day. The ice water might be special, but Ma Xiaotao thought about it for a few days. She didn't think it was because of the ice water. "Senior, this ice water is so magical. Where did you get it?" Ma Xiaotao looked at Wang Feng and asked curiously. Every time she looked at him over the past few days, Ma Xiaotao realized that the reason she was filled with energy was because of this man in front of her. It was incredible. Could it be that, from a certain perspective, seeing such a handsome man would bring strength to a soul master? Wang Feng knew the reason. It was like in his past life. If you saw an unforgettable man or woman on the streets, you would be excited for a long time. From a scientific point of view, looking at a man as handsome as Wang Feng would cause the brain to produce a substance called dopamine. This substance could make people excited and happy. It could make people motivated to do anything. There were many other functions. From an aesthetic point of view, this might be the source of the charm. Of course, in a fantasy world, one could not talk about science, but it was a similar principle. About this, Wang Feng smiled. Ma Xiaotao felt energized when she saw his smile. Her soul power was depleted, but she still wanted to go all out. This ice water was soaked in the egg of the Qilin Lord of Ice Empress. The absolute ice soul power contained rich origin energy. It could suppress Ma Xiaotao's evil fire and help her recover her soul power. Compared to those recovery pills and miraculous medicines, it was far more important. The Qilin Lord of Ice Empress was about to break, so the egg would often release rich origin energy. Soaking it in ice water could be used. It would be a waste. It's soaked in a type of spiritual medicine. Wang Feng didn't say that it was soaked in an egg. It sounded weird. Then it should be very precious. Ma Xiaotao was stunned. She looked at the ice water and felt embarrassed. "It's not expensive. Go and rest." Wang Feng looked at Long Xie. Long Xie was about to evolve after 10,000 years. This was the first time it had undergone a qualitative change since it started cultivating again. "I don't want to rest. Can I stay and see what changes will happen to this stone dragon?" Ma Xiaotao hurriedly said. "Sure." Wang Feng nodded. Long Xie was covered in a layer of dark yellow light. The dark yellow dragon scales all over its body exuded a valiant aura under the bright moonlight. Chapter 11:26. Long Xie's body was now 10 meters long. His body was covered in tough muscles, but the scales made him look like metal. Under this layer of dark yellow light, Long Xie's body was covered in a layer of dark yellow light. SSSS. A pair of dragon wings grew out of Long Xie's back under this dark yellow light. Densely packed dragon scales quickly covered the pair of dragon wings that were more than 10 meters long. The light purple dragon wings were engraved with mysterious patterns, and they carried with them a faint aura of destruction. They seemed to contain a powerful destructive power. Long Xie's claws became sharper, and they shone with a cold light. They were colder than the moon in the sky. Long Xie's eyes suddenly opened. They were blood red. This is the aura of a true dragon? And it's the aura of a 10,000-year soul beast. Ma Xiaotao was shocked. How can a crag dragon have the aura of a true dragon? Senior, is he really a crag dragon? Long Xie's back had many protrusions in addition to the wings. They looked very oppressive. However, they didn't look ugly. They were perfect. He has evolved, Wang Feng answered. Soulbound beasts usually evolve after 1,000 or 10,000 years. They are bound to evolve. Depending on the cultivation of the soulbound beast and the bloodline of the soulbound beast, the evolution period will be the same. However, they will evolve after 1,000 or 10,000 years. Evolve? Ma Xiaotiao was stunned. The 1,000-year and 10,000-year soul beasts had a threshold. Normally, soul beasts would undergo some changes when they reach these two stages. However, most soul beasts would only change in size. Evolution meant a change in all aspects. At least, that was what was happening to this crag dragon. This was even more exaggerated than the true dragons that Ma Xiaotao knew. Ma Xiaotao had seen some true dragons before. Many soul beast forests or some special danger zones had extremely powerful true dragons. Even as a martial soul, there was the blue lightning tyrant dragon, or other types of true dragon bloodline martial souls. Its aura was also very strong. However, the crag dragon in front of him was truly extraordinary. Roar. As the dark yellow light disappeared, Long Xie roared. A huge wave of energy exploded from his body. Countless leaves were swept up, and a sharp gust of wind stirred up the space. After a while, the light disappeared. A brand new Long Xie appeared in front of them. Boss, it's been 10,000 years, Long Xie said excitedly. As a former million-year soul beast, he shouldn't be so excited over a mere 10,000-year breakthrough. However, this rebirth meant a lot to Long Xie. Not bad. Wang Feng walked over and stared at the dragon that looked like a real mountain. The scales all over his body glowed with a dark yellow rock-like luster, giving off a heavy and ancient feeling. The dragon wings on his back were filled with mystery, and as they danced in the air, they carried with them the destructive power of lightning. Wang Feng guessed that this was most likely because he had swallowed the 5-colored mountain rock. The purple mountain in the center was set up by the godly king of destruction, and it contained the law of destruction. The godly king of destruction also controlled the power of lightning, which was the same origin power as Wang Feng's thunder of judgment and judgment. In fact, from this, it was clear that the tribulation origin god king's status and power in the god world. His 7 kinds of source powers were even stronger compared to the 5 great divine kings added together. The evil dragon had devoured the rock Wang Feng had brought from the central mountain, and it might have mutated, giving its wings a special lightning attribute. It was an additional mutation. It gave Long Xie's body a unique and domineering aura. He thought back to the half-meter-tall crag beast and the 10-meter-tall Long Xie. It had only been a little more than 4 months. However, Long Xie's cultivation speed would slow down after 10,000 years. Wang Feng thought it would take a long time for him to reach 100,000 years. As for 1,000,000 years, that was even longer. However, it wasn't a problem for Wang Feng. After all, Long Xie's current cultivation wasn't purely reliant on absorbing evil intent like before. If I meet that woman now, I can beat her for sure, Long Xie said proudly. He was a 10,000-year soul beast. Ordinary 100,000-year soul beasts couldn't beat him. Wang Feng smiled. At the same time, his first soul ring turned black. Oh yes, boss. I can give you 2 soul rings now. Long Xie chuckled and transmitted his voice. I'm not an ordinary 10,000-year soul beast. According to your estimation, 100,000-year soul-bonded beast will give a soul master 2 soul rings. However, I'm special. Long Xie was talking about the rules of the soul contract. When a soul beast reached 100,000 years, it would give a soul master 2 soul rings. Therefore, a soul master only needed to nurture 4 to 5 soul-bonded beasts. When they reached 100,000 years, they would become a titled Doulu. Not only did it reduce the need for soul beasts, but it also made it easier for soul masters to obtain soul rings. Wang Feng estimated that it would take several decades for a 10,000-year soul beast to cultivate to a 100,000-year soul beast under normal circumstances. It wouldn't take more than 100 years. It would take a certain amount of luck to nurture it to 1,000,000 years. Time alone wasn't enough. This was within the range of a soul master's lifespan. Soul masters could live up to 100 years. Even soul sages and soul Douluo could live up to 100 years, let alone titled Dalu. Therefore, in the future, a soul master would only have 4 to 5 soul beasts as his official partners. Long Xie was a special case. He was able to provide Wang Feng with 2 soul rings at the age of 10,000. He was a special case. 2 soul rings. That means we don't have to wait for Lin Lord Ice Empress to hatch. Wang Feng thought for a moment. Let's not delay. I'll break through to rank 20 tonight. Breaking through was a good thing for him. This was because breaking through to rank 20 meant that one of his 5 godly king seals would be broken. He would gain 1/5 of his physical strength. His original body was at rank 100. His physical strength couldn't compare to a godly king's. However, Wang Feng could easily defeat a god below a godly king. His original body's rank 100 soul power could defeat a godly king. However, he didn't rely on his physical strength. He relied on the chaotic green lotus various enhancement. But for the current Wang Feng, 1/5 of his rank 100 soul force was more than enough for him to roam the continent unhindered. Even an ordinary titled Douluo couldn't take a punch from Wang Feng's rank 100 soul power. Even an exceptional Douluo wouldn't be able to take a punch from his second seal at rank 40. His third seal would be god-level strength. His fourth seal would be a rank 3 god. His fifth seal would be close to a rank 1 god. Wang Feng's rank 100 soul power was close to a rank 1 god. With the chaotic green lotus or the Pengu axe, he could easily defeat a godly king. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.